Welcome, everybody, to the Fastback Podcast, where we discuss the beauty that is the Fast and Furious franchise, among other related action films. My name is Justin. I'm joined, as always, by my best friend, Leif.
This is Leif.
How's it going today, sir?
Oh, pretty good.
We'll skip the pleasantries because I think we both know that we did absolutely nothing out of the norm this week. And we're here once again to talk about a ridiculous action movie, as we enjoy doing. Thanks to anybody who has been listening, and thanks to anybody who's listening today. Not too much in the news, other than a fairly big little piece of news in regards to what we discuss. Fate of the Furious already being released on June 27th for digital streaming and released on DVD, as is the case usually now, 2 weeks or so later on July 11th. Amazing. Considering when we were kids and you saw Batman and you waited till the Christmas after the next Christmas.
Oh yeah, you were locked in to
get it on VHS. It had to be in theaters, and then it was in the video store for 6 months, and now this is like 3 months. It's like a 3-month cycle. I don't even mind missing movies that I want to see in theaters as much as I used to.
They're going to be out. I do find it odd that they released the DVD later. It seems they'd throw that one out first.
I think they're trying to really push the digital thing. And I think they're really trying to get people to go digital. And
does anyone have to push the digital anymore?
I don't think so. Yeah, it's weird that it's not all the same day. Not to get way too off topic, but they are the studios, not the theater chains, because this is their bread and butter. But the studios somehow, business, have a certain contracted amount of time that they have to keep a movie in theaters for a release date before they can release it on streaming or
they got to make it special.
Antiquated home video. And the studios are really trying to push for less and less and less of a window, and would love to get it to a point where it's day and date streaming, where if you want to see Mission Impossible 12, it's going to be streaming on iTunes the same day it's at the theater, and you can go to the theater and see it, or you can stream it at iTunes, which, not to get well off point, but is making the theaters try to up their game even more and more with those crazy fancy seats that we sat in for Fast and Furious, and
not
having
only
bars in there. But as they do that, though, the tickets get more expensive. So it's like this downward spiral.
Yeah, but I think it's anymore you have the niches, man. You have the people who are always going to go to the theater. Because let's say Star Wars comes out
That's a good
streaming
example.
The same day it comes out in the theater. You're not going to sit there dressed up as a Wookiee inside your house. You got to do that stuff in public.
As you were saying that, I was thinking Star Wars in regards to there's going to be certain movies that are always going to draw a crowd to the theater. Event movies. People are going to go see Jurassic World 2 at the theater. They're going to go see Star Wars at the theater. A little small movie like that we would have loved, like a Wes Anderson, like Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou. You're streaming that the first day. Unless you're a hardcore like cinema, like I have to go to the theater.
I mean, it would be. His stuff is cool to see in theaters.
I love going to the theater, but it's getting more and more complicated. For me, it gets more complicated as they make it easier to get a ticket. And the experience gets worse and worse with people talking and the prices skyrocketing. So it's an interesting thing.
No one cares anymore.
We could fill a whole podcast with two old souls like ourselves talking about how we don't want to stream movies at home, but at the same time.
I will throw my one rant in here.
Yes.
Which is the movies I want to see, which are admittedly, there's like a handful of people like me who want to see these movies.
Oh, are nowhere near?
They're nowhere near us.
No, there's plenty of times when, before I just completely drank the Kool-Aid and said, I'm just going to watch big blockbusters. Or that new Wes Anderson, or Spike Jonze, or whatever from the early 2000s. We'd be like, oh, let's see this. Oh, it's playing on Navy Pier in Chicago, and that's the nearest one to us. So you make a good point. That might be an interesting way off-topic podcast episode one day where we just sit down and talk about movie-going preferences and what we think about the theater experience and rant about that. But we have more important things to talk about on today's episode. It is what we hope you are all looking forward to, a Fast and the Furious episode. That's what this podcast is about. And we are working our way backwards through these for whoever is maybe listening to this one for the first time.
We've done 8, 7.
We've done 8, 7, and now, of course, we're doing Fast and Furious 6, which is the official title of this one, Fast and Furious 6. not as creative as Furious 7 or The Fate and the Furious. Even though everywhere I looked at this, including the box, because I do own this, it said Fast and Furious 6, but I can swear that when they showed the little title screen pop up on the movie, it just said Furious 6. I don't think that matters. No. But we're on the 6th one. Very brief recap, as we always do when we do a Fast and Furious episode. This is Leif's time watching any of these. I've seen all of these about once. Neither one of us are experts. Leif is having the unique experience of watching these all backwards and trying to piece together what's going on.
Yes.
Because as you've seen from this one, and we'll get into it, they're for big, dumb, whatever you want to call these blockbusters, there's a lot of connective tissue that they kind of keep going with these through lines.
Mm-hmm.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Fast and Furious 6, as always, Leif is going to take the wheel, start to kind of summarize, explain the plot. I'll jump in with my mountain of notes that I have to kind of keep us on course and moving right along. I personally, like we talked about earlier today, kind of need the notes for this one because I feel like the more you watch these, the more they blend together.
I found myself trying to figure out, haven't I seen this before?
Yeah, I needed the notes for this one. And we'll talk about that because there's certain sequences in this where I can understand you saying, haven't I seen this before? But Leif, old man, let's get it started. Before I start, one more thing before you start. This is the first movie he directed 4, 5, and 6. So this is the first one that you'll be seeing directed, his last one, but your first one viewing of the director, Justin Lin. Okay. So he is the kind of the one that stepped in and revitalized this with Tokyo Drift. Mm-hmm. And he did 4 of them. He did Tokyo Drift, he did Fast and Furious, he did Fast 5, and he did Fast and Furious 6. So this was kind of like he was the vision behind this for a huge chunk of it. And these are the ones that he directed. The ones that he directed are the ones that people really seem to love. So he then went on to direct Star Trek Beyond, which I highly recommend both as a Star Trek movie and just as an action movie. But enough about that. I apologize. Okay. Let's hit it.
Okay, so first of all, movie opens up with what I thought was a chase scene.
Yeah, it goes boom, boom.
I didn't understand what was going on because I thought, it was Brian and Dom. And I thought, don't these people like each other? Why are they doing this?
See, I took it as that I knew that they were... I did not remember what they were doing, but I knew that they weren't enemies, so I took it a little differently. I thought they were just racing.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. And, which I thought was kind of nice, looking back at Furious 7.
Yes.
That it was, basically mimicked the ending of Furious 7.
All right.
With them on the thing, except for Brian taking the fork in 7.
Yes.
And not in this one. Anyway, so then, they race, blah, blah. They end up at some, weird little, hospital, church hospital thing.
Yeah, because I think it's important to mention that, and because you haven't seen the 5th one, they are in hiding due to things that happened in the 5th one. I think you know from this one now that they got a considerable amount of money for whatever job they pulled the 5th one that they're in hiding from. So they are in some kind of
hiding
Caribbean island or South American country. Oh, they're in Spain. Oh, okay, they're in Spain. I for some reason thought that they were... Okay, so they're in Spain?
I think it's in Spain.
Possibly. This movie jumps around to a lot of locations, and unlike some of the other movies...
without thinking about it, when they were during the opening intro scene, I thought, okay, well, they're... in California, this is their coast thing.
Probably were in California for real, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
So then, that's why it was wait a minute, they're in this weird little villa.
The important thing is, the reason why they're not at American Hospital is because they're all in hiding. Yeah, and that plays into a big part of what the theme of this movie is.
So anyway, sorry for the distraction about location. Then, we find out there's this weird tense moment between Dom and Brian when they're parked outside the hospital. Mm-hmm. And Dom is once you go in there, it's going to change forever.
Yeah.
And it sort of looked like it was in Brian's eyes where he's I don't really want to go in there.
Yeah, he's yeah, because he's
can we just not do this?
When you walk through that door, everything changes. And is there some little talk that they have there about how he doesn't know if he's going to be a good father or something like that, but he says you will be a good father because you're going to be the father to my nephew. And it's a little
automatically makes you good.
Automatically makes you a good father. And it's a little bit more of their kind of bonding now. And then he kind of goes in and Mia's in there.
Yeah.
Which you've seen Mia only in bits and pieces at this point.
Yeah, from 7.
And you really only see her in bits and pieces in this. She's a much more prominent character in the earlier movies, save Tokyo Drift. And you kind of feel sorry for both the actress and the character that she kind of got stuck into like what happens to, and we talk from time to time about female characters on this podcast, as we do about any characters, where a female character gets written into a corner where it's like, well, we got to do something.
Yeah.
She has a baby.
Baby.
Well, now she has a baby the whole series. So what do? She can't be out on the road heisting with a car seat in the back. So you've seen that happen on countless sitcoms, countless movies.
If Jason Statham is to be believed,
that's true.
You can just carry the baby with you and kill lots of people on a plane.
I like the Mia character. She's one of the core characters. I think it's unfortunate. Well, there's a lot of things unfortunate about Paul Walker passing away, but one of the unfortunate story things about it is they had to write off the Brian O'Connor character, and with it came the Mia character, which I think is unfortunate. So he goes in, she's delivering the baby, and it cuts to this like hip-hop song. And
there's like a flashback.
There's a lot of flashbacks. And they're recapping what's happened, all of which was nothing that you had ever seen before.
Oh, no.
And I was thinking about you when that came on, because I completely forgot about that. This is the one I remembered the least out of all of them that I've watched, was this 6th one. It even in my mind struck me as kind of an oddball one when I was thinking about it, right before we started doing this podcast. And I was thinking about you when they were doing those flashbacks, and I was wondering, did any of this stuff that you saw in the flashbacks, well, for one, you had to see how simple to absurd the flashbacks got. You could see the elevation of like insanity just in the flashbacks. Did you see anything in those flashbacks that you're like, oh, that looks cool. That looks cool. I want to see that. Or was it just flashbacks?
It was just flashbacks. I mean, this is the thing. Like anytime they do flashbacks in anything, I'm immediately just like, yeah.
You don't like flashbacks?
No, it's the TV show thing, man. And when you have the TV show and we don't have anything to do for this episode, so we're gonna have an entire episode devoted to flashbacks.
Like I want to say there was an episode of Mr. Belvedere where they accidentally get locked in the attic, the 3 of them, and then they're just going through boxes and they're like, that was from Wesley's recital in 2nd grade, and they flashback that. That would be like a standard once a season.
Oh yeah, they're just doing a flashback.
Back in the day sitcoms.
And I mean, so ever since then, I just can't do it, and especially when it's like in a movie.
Yeah.
It's like, presumably, if you're watching, if you're normal, unlike me, if you're watching Fast and the Furious 6, you've already seen the first 5.
Which for me, that's what it was. It was kind of...
So you don't need the flashbacks. You're just like, yeah, I was already there for the first 10 hours of this.
Unless you've seen it and, like... You're thinking about it from and again, we're talking about theater-going experience versus DVD. Let me paint you a picture about this. It's whatever year this came out. I'm not even going to try to guess. In 2013 or whatever. I don't know. And you've been watching these movies in the theater since 2001 when Fast and Furious comes out. You're sitting there, the lights dim, you just saw an action sequence, you love these characters, and then all of a sudden hip-hop music starts playing, and you're already pumped because here you are to watch Fast and the Furious 6, and you're seeing all those flashbacks. To me, it'd be kind of like, yeah, it's a montage. Yeah. I think I would enjoy it in that setting. I didn't mind it because I was just like, yeah.
I didn't mind it. I wasn't like, define my way through this, but like...
No, I think I kind of... I'm not going to say I enjoyed it, but I was like, yeah, this is a Fast and Furious hip-hop song. They're showing flashbacks to scenes that I remembered, which maybe was the difference, was I remember these. And I had no problem with it. I like the fact, though, that I think we have probably talked almost as long on that flashback montage than we did about Fate of the Furious when we came out of the theater for it almost. But I should mention very quickly, because we talked about Fate of the Furious coming out on DVD, we will go back when we have a second viewing of that and do a little bit more detailed, kind of what we become accustomed to podcast about that. But anybody who's interested in our initial thoughts about that. We did probably a 50-minute episode when we first came out of the theater. It was our first real episode.
Very unprimed.
Very unprimed. So you can check that out, but while you're waiting for us in a month or two to do, I don't think we'll be through all the Fast and the Furious movies by the time that comes out on DVD. I was not expecting it to come out on DVD that quickly, but we'll get to that. That'll be coming. So, flashback sequence in the rearview mirror. Did you like that?
Rearview mirror. And that's where things are behind you.
That's where things are behind you. And then we cut to The Rock, and he's at the scene of some kind of crime, and he's talking about how this is the best crew that he's ever seen, and you see a car crash into a building, and we're introduced to The Rock's new partner, who I don't know her name at all, so I'm just call her Not Elena the whole time. Yeah. It's his new partner, Not Elena. And he's saying something about her resume, like, 2 years in this, and you were on this unit. If you're half as good as you are, we're going to get along great. And there's cars crashing into buildings. And, of course, you think that they're talking about Dom's crew. That's what they're trying to get you to think. Like, it's Dom's crew. And he says, because he even says, after they say, we have one of their people in custody, he goes, I'm going to question this guy. And he kind of a funny little thing where he goes into the interrogation room and you see the guy's back is to the camera. Yeah, and it's like a Vin Diesel body double.
Yeah, very Domish.
Yeah, very Domish guy. I even call him British Vin Diesel. And he is going to interrogate him about his boss, who we discover at this point is the one that they were talking to, referring the job, of course, that they just came from, and that's Owen Shaw. So let's tell us a little bit about this interrogation scene.
Okay, so the interrogation scene.
Did you like British Vin Diesel? I kind of liked British Vin Diesel.
It was funny. I didn't get too attached to him only because, you didn't get to be like. There was. First of all, I don't understand why he was in the room like uncuffed.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a big guy.
Well, he's a big guy, and he's also apparently like part responsible for like the best heist ever. Yeah, so he's just their only sitting connection. There.
I really, the more I think about it, like the clever little idea that you think they're talking about Vin Diesel's crew, and they come in, and it's a guy who looks like Vin Diesel from behind. But I like little moments like that. But he's sitting there.
But yeah, so anything, okay, well, he's gonna do the whole like, I'm gonna yell at you and slam things. Yeah. But like immediately he just starts flinging him across and around the room.
Yeah, he starts beating him up pretty hardcore, and they get into not beating him up because he's uncuffed, which I guess is why they left him uncuffed. To be fair, because you're not gonna like The Rock if he's beating up a guy who's cuffed to a table. But they get in a pretty decent brawl where he's literally picking this man up. Yeah, throwing him against the wall.
He throws him into the ceiling. Yeah.
It's a great little claustrophobic, tight-spaced fight.
And I love like they shoot over to the window.
Yeah, two-way glass.
Not Elena and British guy. Yeah, the British guy is like, is this legal? Like, nope. Why would you even have to ask this? Clearly, this is not whatever is currently happening.
If you are in that situation where you are behind two-way glass watching an interrogation, chances are that you know enough about law enforcement to know that that's probably not legal tactics to throw the person you're interrogated's head through the ceiling. The actress, I don't know this actress's name who plays Not Elena, and I use the term actress very loosely because I don't think she is an actress. I think she might be like a woman's boxer or a woman's MMA. Did she seem, having me say that, does that fit? Did she seem like an actress? She's better than the other MMA woman who was from Furious 7 who played the bodyguard at the hotel. Oh, yeah. She was awful. And I don't know anything. People who might be listening to this might be screaming at their computer or whatever, like, because it's an obvious answer who these women are, but I apologize. I don't know who they are. She was a better actor than the one from 7. Yes. The one from 7 was terrible. The one who gets in the fight with Letty in the penthouse.
She was just like a stereotype.
You don't have that. You're not that charming or whatever.
I will crush you. Basically, it was Ivan Drago of Fast and Furious.
Very much.
Actually, no, I'll get to that later in this series, but yeah.
Yeah, we kind of have an Ivan Drago, the Fast and the Furious in this. But, so he's beating this guy up, and eventually he beats some answers out of him. And him and Not Elena walk kind of out of wherever they're at, the precinct, and she says, well, let's go get him. Let's go get Owen. And he says some lines along, I wrote this down, you don't just pick up Owen Shaw like groceries. To catch wolves, you need wolves. Let's go hunting. So we're getting a little bit, if anybody listened last week, we're getting a little bit of triple X syndrome there, where it's like you have 3 beat lines that would have been, each could have been the line that you say before you cut to the scene. But instead we got 3 of them.
Now, having said that, and this is one of the things where, like, I didn't even remember any of this.
This about the interrogation scene?
I know that the guy was just getting, like, brutalized. Yeah. And then, like, next scene, it's them getting Vin Diesel. Like, I don't remember any of this stuff.
Yes, you are right about that. So go ahead and move on with that. Hobbs drops in on Toretto. Yeah, well, he's living in paradise with Elena. You see Elena again.
Yeah, they're waking up in some beautiful morning or evening. I hope it's afternoon because Vin Diesel's drinking a beer.
Yeah, that's true. He has a beer in bed. That was probably by...
But whatever. Fast and Furious. So
he goes out to start working on an engine.
Yeah, he's just kind of like standing by an engine because that's what you do.
He just walks immediately out and starts working on an engine.
And Hobbs
shows up, pops up behind him, and says something along the lines of, didn't take me that long to find you. And Vin Diesel was like,
I wasn't hiding.
I'm not hiding because I'm here and there's no...
Extradition.
What is it again?
Extradition?
Extradition. Yeah. There's no extradition. The weather's nice. Yeah. And I'm not hiding. Again, these guys, they are never going to let the other guy get the last word. I do like their rapport together. Mm-hmm. And the rapport in this is pretty awesome throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, so...
he's not there to arrest him. He's there because he needs his help. And,
Vin Diesel's like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, I'm not going back to the States.
Then we did the folder. Yes. Which I never understand this in the movies. Why do you just present the person with the folder when you can just basically give them the folder and also say, oh, by the way, Letty's alive? You don't just be like, I think if you had that,
I think even in this dire of situations, if you as a human being had that dramatically delicious of a moment, no matter what it was, you would just want to sit there and just really enjoy it. Just slide it across. Just take every ounce of just joy that you could get out of that moment. Because how many times are you going to shock a guy that hardcore, that huge in your life? So he's check it out. And he looks at it, and it's pictures of Letty. Yeah. And these were taken a week ago. Now, to jump ahead a split second, he goes and visits Brian, He shows him the pictures, and Brian has the reaction that I would have had initially. Yeah. Hey, you're a cop. How do I know these pictures were taken a week ago? These pictures could be 4 years ago when you were chasing us, and you're trying to get me to come back to the United States so you can immediately arrest me. Yeah. I'm not following this. But he plants just enough of a seed in Vin Diesel's mind.
So he has to do
that he has to find out. Mm-hmm. All right. And then I believe there's something in there.
The whole time, like, Elena walks out.
Oh, yeah.
And she's just like, yeah, I did this.
Everybody's very... Are the women in these movies... Not to always talk about the roles of the women in these movies, but whatever, it's a subject. Mm-hmm. Are they too one-dimensionally supportive? Where every goofball thing... And it gets... We'll talk about it at the very end with Elena. It's an absurd amount of supportive. Yeah. Of just like, you be happy. But we'll get to that in the end, the very end, like the last scene end. But even with Mia, it's like, yeah, we're married now, and you have an infant son, but I guess go to London and chase after terrorists.
This is what I wanted to get into. I want to spend more time talking about this thing.
About him going to their house.
Yeah, he's at Brian now because he has to get... He's wondering what to do or whatever.
So we're past him being recruited by The Rock. Yeah. So basically, to put a bow on that, The Rock recruits him, says, I need your team. Yeah. So he's got to start putting his team together. Did we pass the sequence? No. The sequence is exactly next, where we see where our crew has been. All right, so let's talk a little bit, before we get to Brian, because he's the last one we see. We see where our crew is. And we see that Roman is being Roman. He's on a plane with a bunch of ladies. Taj is like doing this Robin Hood thing where he's apparently breaking into
break into ATMs and have them just spew money out.
Yeah, like even though he's a millionaire, so if he wanted to be supportive in a financial way, he could probably do that legally, but whatever. And we see, and this is why I had to get back to this, and then I'm going to let you go full board on the Brian meeting. We see my favorite couple in the entire Fast and Furious franchise. What is it called when people on message boards like start saying like, what if Buffy, instead of dating Spike, was dating the teacher? What is that called? Shipping?
There's shipping, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a thing, that the kids do.
That's, in
2004.
Just follow William Shatner's Twitter feed.
All right.
He talks a lot about it.
I'm not all about fictional couples in movies because I know it's fictional. I know there's hardcore people, like Pam and Jim, Sam and whatever. But I love me some Han and Giselle. They are a badass couple. And we're introduced to them just eating and then getting in the middle of a gunfight for some reason. But just aesthetically, they're both cool looking. They're both beautiful people. They're aesthetically both cool looking. They're doing this like back-to-back like gun thing.
I did think that was funny. So like in that scene where all the cops come in and surround them.
Yes.
And
to give them a phone.
Yeah. They do the back-to-back thing. But like it's like Giselle's just kind of standing there. Yeah. But, like, Han is, like, panicking. And did you see this? He, like, goes to one side, and then he quick goes to the other side. Oh, yeah. And then he
goes... as we see, Giselle is the badder of the two. Yeah. She's kind of the... she's the badder of the two.
He's just a very little angsty, for what I remember.
I love Han. Did you notice Han is always eating? That's, like, his thing. He always has snacks. So we're finally into a situation where you're finally getting to see some Han. Did you enjoy Han in this movie?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we see where they're at, and point being, they all get a phone call. Yeah. And you know who's at the other end of the phone call. It is Dom. Yeah. He's getting the crew back together, and they're
finally, all like, yeah, we're gonna go immediately.
Oh, they're immediately. Yeah, he literally turns around the plane. Yeah. I'm on my way. We're on our way. Why the cops were surrounding them to give them a phone, I don't understand.
Maybe they couldn't.
Yes, maybe they were hiding, or maybe
Dom couldn't have got a hold of them any other way.
I don't know. It doesn't. They're very important people. Yeah. And Dom can reach out to them at any time, and they're there because they're family. Finally, my friend, there's one person though that he visits in person. Take the wheel.
Yeah. So he's at Brian's house, and they're having the big discussion about, well, is
she alive or not? Yeah. Or is it a trick?
Yeah. And I thought this was interesting because, again, like with Brian looking very much like he doesn't want to have a baby. Yeah. He's looking, he seems to be going out of his way to, be like, nah, this is nothing. Yeah. We're good. We don't want to do this.
So you don't think Brian wants to go after Letty?
I thought
you were implying that Brian will do anything to get out of that house with his wife and kid. We better go out on this adventure. Sorry.
I think he just wants to he just wanted to be like, I just want to hang out. I don't want to do this.
Yeah. He's moved on.
But then Mia shows up and she's like, we have to do this.
Yeah, Mia shows up and she's like, hey, Letty's family, which to her, Letty was more family than Brian possibly, because I guess. I remember back to the first one, she grows up with Letty because she's Dom's sister, and that's his, whatever. They grew up together.
At the same time now that they're married.
Yeah. So they're married, and what was I thinking about?
They are one family.
Yeah, they're all one family, and again, she's very supportive. And she says, no, you have to do this. Did you like the little... I like the little beat where they're each trying to get the son to choose either an import or an American muscle car. And he's talking about, is he really a Toretto or an O'Connor? Again, this is all stuff that comes from, the first movie that kind of really is a connective tissue that gives these movies a little bit more to where you care about the characters than something like Transformers where you don't care about the human characters and you're just blowing stuff up. And we talked about it with 8 and we talked about it in 7. There's just enough of these little character moments for it to be not just stupid action sequence after stupid action sequence. And there's just enough character moments in the action sequences where they do little unique beats that I think makes it great. So he's talking to Brian. Like we said, Brian is like, I did this as cops all the time. She's dead. You got to move on. He says, I got to know for sure. And as you said, Mia comes out and says, no, you guys...
Yeah, you have to go.
You have to go and you have to figure it out for sure. Because no matter, how much money they have, and this is kind of, I took as the theme of this, they can't go home. And home is what's the most important thing. So they're all millionaires. They're all living it up in these exotic locales. But they all just want to be in LA in that 12 by 12 backyard eating barbecue.
Yeah.
So Brian doesn't buy it. He goes with Mia's support.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to whatever their abandoned warehouse command central is. And we're learning about the nightshade device.
Yes.
And The Rock is telling them, this is what's up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, so this is one of those scenes where, again, like, my focus... I was basically Roman that whole scene.
Which is great. He's great in that scene. He just wants chips.
Yeah, he just wants cheese. He's like, what are we doing? Where am I at? What's this
why
place?
am I here? Yeah, why am I here?
Does anyone have change?
Do you have any change? And the Taj is like, you're a millionaire. Why are you borrowing change? He gives him 50 cents. He goes,
I do want to know why Secret Base has vending machines.
Well, a pop machine. Well, commandos have to get snacks, man.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, who's
chips.
servicing the vending machines? Like what company do they get to be, like, top secret clearance to come in there with, Doritos?
You know what, though? That's an amazing question that I would love to actually, in real world, look into. Because I'm sure the Pentagon has vending machines.
Is there, like, some special...
There's got to
be a special...
There's got to be somebody with special clearance. I'm sure every military base that you go to... I'm sure has vending machines, a pop machine, something to get bottled water out of.
I wonder if it's just, like, built
It's got to be a government contract.
Either that, or I wonder if it's just built into, like, some, like, specific
branch of
duty,
where you're the vending machine person who that's your...
Maybe it's like they punish people. It's like KP duty. They're like, okay, now you have to go service the vending machines.
Because the same thing, like somebody vacuums at the White House.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a military enlisted person who's vacuuming at the White House.
Although this does conjure up hilarious images of, like, some guy having to run out to Sam's Club to buy a giant box of, like, Doritos and pretzels.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine that, like, and these are all people, like, if you look at these actors, like, I doubt The Rock is drinking too many Pepsis and eating too many Kit Kats. But regardless, vending machine,
Julie was telling me about The Rock's diet the other day.
Yes.
5,000 calories a day. And I imagine it's not like 5,000 calories from cake like mine.
Yeah.
It's 5,000 calories from, healthy muscle things.
I can't even imagine not just the mental and physical commitment, but the financial commitment to stay in that kind of shape just to maintain the diet has to be insane.
This, of course, is coming from two people having a podcast versus two people having...
What is it? This isn't nothing against this movie, and it may just be where we're at in our journey of podcasting. But we've talked more about who cleans the floors at the Pentagon, The Rock's diet, the theater-going experience. We've talked at all about this movie. But that's because not much has happened yet. We're still early on in this movie.
Yeah.
So the great little beat, one of my favorite parts of the movie. Roman can't get the vending machine to work, and The Rock just pulls out a gun and shoots it and says it's on the house. Great little moment, and we get to the point where now there's some wheeling and dealing to be done.
Wheeling and dealing, and they're like, okay, we're going to do this, what do you want, blah, blah, blah.
And what do they want?
They want to, basically, for their records to be...
Yeah, so they can
expunged. Yeah, they want home.
They want to go home. They want full pardons.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the deal to begin with was, you're going to find Letty, they're smart enough to say, no, we're going to find Letty, but when we find Letty, we all get to go home.
Yeah.
And The Rock says, I can't do that. And Brian, having been an FBI agent, in the fourth one, I believe, says, BS, you can do that. The Rock shows respect with his eyes. He just kind of does that like,
you got me.
Yep, you got me. And he says, fine, full pardons.
Yeah.
And that is about all we see. Do we see planning? Is at that point, I'm vague on this. How did they...
I don't remember. There was the whole scene about when they're like, we're going to need cars.
Yeah, they're going to need cars. So there's always a scene in there. They go back to that location 3 or 4 times, and they all blend together. This one really blended together.
This is the problem. This is I feel
7
like
was
bum.
set piece to set piece to set piece to set piece, all in very distinctive parts of the world.
Yeah.
Never really returning to where they were before.
This
is all in pretty much London and Spain.
Yeah.
In nighttime, and it was very so. For the life of me, and we apologize, I can't remember how they get from wanting full pardons to they are now at what they believe is Shaw's base, and they are sending them up, but they're sending in British Vin Diesel in with a wire.
Yeah.
How do they know to be there? Do we know why? Do we know
because
how?
Apparently he talked. I guess.
Okay, so I guess British Vin Diesel must have talked. So British Vin Diesel talked, and they know where Shaw is, and they're prepared to go in there. Why did they need the Fast and Furious crew? Because, and I'm thinking about this out loud, because I don't think the Fast and Furious crew is part of sending British Vin Diesel in, because if I remember correctly, they're up in the parking garage watching with binoculars. And then they can't be there, so they're incognito, and maybe this is we're part of this operation, but if anybody asks, the United States is not involved in this operation type thing.
And they have the brilliant realization then, was it then? That it's like, if Shaw wants to see you, he'll let you see him.
Well, that comes later when he visits Braga, but that's a theme of the whole movie, is Shaw is the puppet master of all this.
Yeah.
And somehow they realize that, all of the cops in London have descended on this warehouse, and then I don't know how they realize, maybe through Taj hacking, that he says, wait a minute, they're headed to Interpol.
Yeah, something's happening at Interpol for some reason.
This was all a ploy to lead
even
all
though
the
Shaw
cops
was there.
Yeah, Shaw was there. So the British Vin Diesel comes in, he's like, hey, Shaw. And, Shaw's like, they let you go pretty easy. And he's like, I didn't say anything. And then Shaw gives him some money, and he's like, here's your payment, old friend, and a little more for the next job. And the guy's like, what next job? He's like, the one that you're working for me right now. So Shaw gets into one of my favorite things about this movie. This incredible IndyCar-looking wedge car.
Yeah, the thing
that they really built.
Yeah, it's basically the F1. It's an car.
Yeah, it's like an F1 looking car.
Instead, it's just made from materials they found on the set of from Bartertown.
Yeah, and it's like a ramp.
Yeah,
it's like a wedge.
Yeah,
we'll get into that because that comes up very soon.
Proceeds to drive off.
He drives off. He gives the one British guy. He opens it up.
And they realize, there's a bomb.
There's a bomb, and it blows up, and it's Shaw, and he's out running the bomb with the
zipping
car
underneath the bridge that all the police are on.
If British Vin Diesel, this is what I don't understand. If this was all part of a plan to get all the police to that location, so they're not at Interpol, which is an absurd thing that happens sometimes in movies. That is the dumbest thing in the world that we've seen before, where it's like, there's not all the police are ever going to go in one place. That happens, I think, in The Dark Knight Rises. Bane gets all the police to go down in the sewers searching for Commissioner Gordon, then he blows the sewers and it traps them in there, so there's no police, but no.
There's
going to be somebody back at headquarters, but that's completely besides the point. So that would make you think that if this was all part of the plan, then British Vin Diesel would have got caught on purpose. He would have purposefully led them to the warehouse because that was the plan. And then in the meantime, while British Vin Diesel is leading them all to the warehouse, like, all right, I'm going to talk. Here's our secret base. Come on, guys. Then why did he kill British Vin Diesel? Because it seemed like that was the plan. That British Vin Diesel was blurring them there on purpose. Yeah.
But we do realize
he doesn't give a crap.
They go out of their way to show that he just doesn't care later on.
So he didn't kill British Vin Diesel because British Vin Diesel talked. British Vin Diesel talked because it was part of the plan, and then he just killed him.
Unless, of course, they just modified the plan.
True. But
anyway.
And then I could not tell you for the life of me, and I'm hoping you could clear this up. And I almost went back and watched it a second time, but I ran out of time. Not the whole movie, but this sequence. I did try to watch this sequence a second time, and then that's when you picked me up, and I had to cut it short. what did Shaw want at Interpol that he didn't want all the cops there? Because I don't think they ever got there in the movie.
No, they never really did anything. I don't know. It just was like, I know he met up with his crew.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what his crew...
He meets up with his crew because they're on the road, and he's like, let's go.
We're doing.
And they give chase.
Yeah. Because all of the Fast and Furious people...
Yeah.
Go to Interpol.
Yeah.
And then they're chasing...
But why?
Oh, was it for that gun? But why would Interpol have it?
The grappling
the chip
gun
thing?
No, they had the chip gun already. Yeah, I can't...
I don't know.
You hear this from time to time, people, when we try to decide what happened in a movie, and neither one of us have any clue. Because they don't get... I'm thinking,
I'm not even going to try to figure this out anymore.
They're going to get
given up on Interpol.
Yeah, one more thing for me. I thought when I was watching it, okay, they're going to get to Interpol. Something is going to happen there. There's going to be some kind of MacGuffin there. No?
I don't think so.
Or is that where they get the piece that they're after the whole time?
No, that comes later. That's in the tank.
Nightshade. That's where?
In the tank.
What tank? Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. I have no idea what you're talking about. So anyway, Interpol people, forget it. The point is, there's an amazing chase sequence through the London Underground. Is that what they call that tunnel system?
The Underground is the railway.
Well, they do that, but that's later.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then, and Hobbs jumps off of his, crazy military vehicle.
Okay.
Onto the thing that Shaw's driving. And Shaw, does a quick little maneuver and flips him off.
Oh, okay. I missed that part. I did see the cool Shaw was going... The point of his car was so he could spin around and come at you head on, and then you would use his car as a ramp and flip you over. It was cool. Yeah. It was pretty cool. He has a cool car.
There's all sorts of cool stuff going on.
There's a cool bad guy car. Yeah, that's what I was saying. There's a lot of beats.
And that's where the chip gun thing comes out.
The chip gun I thought was cool.
Mystically, turn people's brakes on.
Yeah, turns your brakes on.
Only their left brake apparently.
Yeah, it turns your brakes on. It reminded me of very slightly. I had a brief image of the bat discs from Batman Returns. That were the cup tops on our Batman Returns cups that we collected when we were kids.
The mystical things that
I love those things. There's a green one that grew in the dark, specific. A black one, and a gray. And we had them all, and we'd run around the neighborhood throwing them at each other.
Yeah, because...
After watching Batman Returns, a movie that no 12-year-old should have been able to see in hindsight. What do you think back to Batman Returns? But back to Fast and Furious 6. So I like the chip gun. Yeah, I like the little beat where Brian realizes it's on his side of the car.
Yeah, and then he does his little
telephone pole or whatever and gets it off. There's so much happening in this sequence because then they get out of their cars for a second and have a gunfight, and Han saves Giselle. They duck on behind one of those red phone booths.
Oh yeah, there's the sniper thing.
There's a sniper, but then I'm thinking, all right, not to beat a dead horse, but
that was a whole other area.
But that was a whole other area. That was different people. And then they get back in the cars, and then they're chasing each other through the tunnels. And there's a very cool tunnel sequence.
Yeah, and they split off.
They split off in the tunnels, which I didn't know that was even a thing. But I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. A geographic kind of location. That was something I never saw before. Tunnels that split off into different lanes. Kind of stupid, but I didn't know it existed,
because
so I thought it was kind of cool. Yeah, because I live in the Midwest.
We don't even barely know tunnels exist.
We don't even know tunnels exist. And extended sequence with that. Chip locks up the tires. He flips. I have a note here that he flips Brian. Does he flip Brian over? Does Brian's car get totaled in this?
I know he just flipped over in another one. I think he probably just flipped over twice. I know he just flipped over when he's chasing the tank. There's
so much happening, and there's I think there's a blonde lady who we see, but we never hear from. She has a flippy car too.
Yeah, that's his nemesis because she comes back to get him.
She flips him. Yeah, because then she drives by and kind of smiles at him because she flips him in the tunnel. So she flips him in the tunnel. So are Han and Giselle and Taj and Roman possibly? Are they in a completely different area? They've broken off and it's Vin Diesel and he's chasing.
I think they're maybe the ones who are going to intercept that first group.
All right. It's an amazing sequence. It's a good chase sequence. There's a lot going on.
I have another 40 hours on my rental. Okay. I should just go through and map the whole thing out.
You should. Do you want to live tweet the chase sequence at some point?
I don't think I could type that fast.
But yeah, there's a lot going on, and like I said, there's a lot of funny little moments.
Yeah.
I'm sure Roman has a few of his "What's going on" lines.
Oh yeah, when the chip thing lands on his hood, he's just like, what?
Yeah. So, chase sequence does the Fast and Furious franchise proud. A lot going on.
Oh, that was intense. That was like...
It was intense, and it was just boom,
because
boom,
that's the thing.
boom, boom.
As evidenced by us not even knowing what's going on.
No.
You're just watching the whole thing thinking, holy cow.
And that shows you what these movies really are, for better or for worse. For me, for better, is that... And that's one of 10 scenes like that in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Is
that the first major...
That's
the first major action sequence. Other than the little bit of racing of them at the beginning, yes. I would say that's the first major action sequence. And then there are a few fights and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So, at some point in all that chaos and madness, Dom sees Letty.
Yeah.
Or does he? I don't think he sees Letty. I think, and this is great, he recognizes her driving. Yeah,
because he was about to catch Shaw.
Yeah.
He was, like, right there. Well, I mean, by catch Shaw, I mean tap him with his car. But, like, that's why Letty shows up and, like, knocks him off the track. Okay. Which is why he gives up and starts chasing her.
He gives up and starts chasing her. So I thought it was something as absurd. I thought he said something like, I recognize that driving. Which I would have loved. In my mind, that's how this went. He recognizes the driving.
And then, like, he gets out of the car at some point because he has her...
Yeah, they pull off into side street. And
she shoots him.
She shoots him, yeah. He goes, hey, Letty. And he confronts her. And she kind of looks at him confused. Like, not confused like, I think I know you, but more confused. Like, how do you know my name? And, like, what do you want? Shoots him in the shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay. And he kind of falls back. And that's really the end of that sequence.
Yeah, then they're back at the...
Yeah, that's just the end of that sequence. And in many times in these movies...
Headquarters.
There is no repercussions. There's not helicopters flooding the sky with cops. There's not cops surrounding them everywhere you go.
Yeah,
They've just destroyed half a city. Well, all the cops are still back at...
Oh, yeah, trying to...
All the cops are still back at Owen Shaw's base, but they don't know that... Dom and his crew are helping them, so that's... Oh, wow.
Doesn't matter. Fast and Furious, man.
It's Fast and Furious, baby. So we get back to the base, and we have probably maybe not only my favorite Roman moment from this movie, but maybe one of my favorite Roman moments from this entire franchise. When he's going down the pictures, he's like... White Hobbs.
Oh, yeah.
Look, this guy's got a beanie on and stuff like that. He's like, and he's talking, and then he sees the blonde girl, and he's like, no, we know this one's Brian. You know you're the prettiest.
When did you have time for that photo shoot?
Yeah, when did you have time for the photo shoot? And he was more, I think the writing, at least for his character, was a little better in this movie than the next two, because I found him much funnier and much more enjoyable rather than annoying.
Caricature.
No. He was funny in this. Yeah. He was actually funny. He was a character, not a caricature. Whereas I think by the time we get to the 8th one, he's like, Ferrari!
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, it starts to get annoying. But I love that concept, because you see it in a lot of spy movies where there's a team and there's the counterpart team and there's tit for tat. Like, this is their computer guy. This is our computer guy. This is their muscle. And you see those two teams face off. It's one of my favorite things about the spy genre. So they're there, and they realize that, and I'll let you take it on this because I'm taking the wheel a little bit too much. They need to find out who made the supercar, which leads them to all go their separate ways.
So who was it? It was Han, Roman,
Natalena, and Giselle.
They go to track down... They apparently immediately find the guy who makes the, like, equipment.
Oh, yeah, they're like, oh, there's only 5. Yeah, they do some, like, real, like,
and
not even Columbo. What was the thing? They do some CSI. Like, remember in CSI Miami?
Yeah.
Or those CSI shows, like, they're always like, well, I know this grass, and this grass is only grown on the football field of Ohio State. And they're experts on everything.
Which is basically what Xander Cage did in all of
Yes, and that's what this is. They say, well, that's this kind of brake, and this brake is only manufactured and sold to these countries, and there's only 2 people in all of London who know how to install this kind of brake, which leads them to a really not the garage of the only 2 men in all of London who could install super brakes. It looks like it's a junkyard.
He's in some back alley just blowing things up because that wouldn't have aroused suspicion in London. But then, and this is the thing, so it was they're watching them.
Yeah, they're watching them.
They're like, okay, well, we're going to go down there and talk to him. And then immediately Nadalena and Giselle are like, no, we're going to go down there. Why?
Because he's a man.
Because he's a man.
Yeah.
And
you took issue with this?
I didn't take issue with it. It just was it's out of place as Roman and Han then go on to make it. It just was I don't...
Explain.
Well...
Because the girls go down there and they talk to him, with the point being that they can flirt their way into information.
Yeah, but they don't flirt their way.
They don't flirt their way into information.
They just basically...
Well, they start a little bit. No, they do. They start. And they're like, oh, we can make it worth your while. And the guy's like...
Yeah, he makes the crack about prostitutes. He already had hasn't called his prostitute today, so he's
missed that. I thought he was more just no, later on. Really? I completely missed that. I thought his character was more, no, I'm a businessman, so you can make it work to me by paying me, and that's when they tackle him to the ground and they're going to break his arm. But I love what's happening on the other end of that sequence.
Well, and I guess that's why because I don't know why. I just the statement by itself doesn't bother me, but the deal Roman made out of it, who's she calling not a man? It just seemed out of place, or not a man.
Yeah. Well, Roman is insulted for all of men everywhere.
Yeah, he is taking it upon himself. 2
beautiful women are going to go think that they can flirt with a guy to get information out of him.
He's trying to claim reverse sexism at this point.
I think he's trying to claim reverse sexism, and that kind of I could take or leave. But I did love the little ribbing about how he's in love.
Yeah.
And he says something along the lines of
you gotta
get a big ring.
Yeah.
And if you don't get a big ring,
immediately comes the penis jokes.
Yeah, you better be big somewhere else. And I'm thinking to myself, okay. But that is saved when Han eats the potato chips and says, "Is that why all your women wear such expensive jewelry?" And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Because this is a little too moment between these 2 characters.
Yeah.
And I thought that Han and Roman and the 2 actors who play them, I thought they played well off of each other in that scene.
Yeah. And then
they take him into
start talking
to get information, and he smartly turns on the cell phone.
Yeah.
To alert Shaw that they're there.
Super Crew shows up to basically kill everybody.
Kills that guy. And is there any kind of... There is... Oh my... We're missing a whole huge new set.
That's another huge fight because they fight... This is when they fight through the underground.
This is when they fight through the underground. So go ahead and let's hear about that.
Yeah, so there's... And I don't even know how they got to the underground, to be quite honest. All I know is all of a sudden Han
Does she jump on a motorcycle?
Oh, probably.
I want to say that she jumps on a motorcycle. But that would imply that there's a motorcycle chase... The next thing I remember...
Giselle and Letty are fighting. Not Giselle and Letty. Not Elena and Letty.
Not Elena and Letty are having a pretty brutal fight. There was one moment where I was like, oh, where they fall down the stairs and one girl lands on the railing back first.
Yeah, that was a pretty hardcore fight.
So yeah, I have notes on this.
And then Roman and Han are chasing the other guy.
Roman and Han are chasing the counterpart.
Yeah, who's Mr. Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And just whoops everybody. And even whoops. I do love the part. I remember this part where Han goes to fight him and just gets just mauled.
Oh yeah, there's a split second where they're about to run into him and then kind of
yeah, and then but then that's not that part. This is Han looks at Roman and is like your turn.
yeah. And then they just get brutally beat by this guy.
They're just mauled.
And gunshots are going off, and everyone's just kind of standing around watching this fight, which I guess you would. You're not going to run into it, and you got to catch your train. So I think you would do what the extras in this scene did, and they kind of just backed as far away as they could, and kind of were just like, "What the heck is going on?"
I do love what you just said. they don't want to interrupt the fight, but they gotta catch a train.
Yeah,
like, it's
because you're not going to run off.
I don't want to get involved.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you're not going to run out of the train station. So, and then at the end, one thing I didn't understand was when he's like, no one ever needs to find out about this. Oh. And I'd find out about what? That they got
whooped up
by one guy, I guess?
Yeah, that they got it handed to him by, like,
okay,
Mr.
so that's
Kung
what they
Fu.
did. We don't want anybody to know about
that's
this.
what I thought. That was, like, the better part. I thought that was a lot better than their little, like, you know...
So you liked that. You liked them fighting together. That's fine. I didn't understand how, like, no one needs to know about this, but I guess now that you make sense, it makes sense. They were embarrassed.
Getting beat up by one guy.
They were embarrassed. Well, no one ever... I would love to see the outtakes in this where they tell each other their stories of what they did individually. Like, it was like, oh man, and then I was in the airplane and I picked up the one guy and I threw him into the other guy's head. No way. Well, when I was down on the ground, I was hanging from a harpoon. And, like, I would love to, like, see this where they fill each other in on the gaps of what they did the entire time.
Through the air, on fire.
Yeah. So that's... crew 1.
Yeah.
Crew 2 is just a very peculiar sequence where The Rock and Tej have to go buy cars.
Yeah.
At an auction of some kind.
Yeah, because they need cars, but this is what's weird. So I think they specified they needed cars that didn't have computers in them.
Yes.
So then I think they bought cars... The auction they were at was filled with really fancy cars, and I think they bought a lot of cars with computers in them.
Oh, just by looking at them?
Yeah, but then in the next scene, when they're driving, now that I think about it, the cars were, like, old because they had, like, a Superbird in there.
Yeah, and they go to this sequence.
Why would you buy that car? Why? Anyway, sorry.
This British guy is, like, immediately racist and says, kitchen help enters in the back. And they're like, excuse me? And then he does a Sherlock where he's like, you don't have any bling on or an entourage. Your pants look like they're more tactical than for style. Clearly you don't have money for these cars. And the whole time The Rock is, and I enjoyed the part where he's like, you're not going to steal these cars. And he gets insulted and he's like, can we steal the cars now? And he's like, you're not stealing these cars. So we cut to the next sequence where...
They're surrounded by cars.
You presume that they bought the cars.
No, he says they bought them.
Yeah.
They bought them because he's like, I got millions.
Yeah. And
I don't know why I did that weird voice.
We will not be editing out that quasi... That's the voice that we just did. We see that the British guy is delivering them. And then, like, to embarrass this guy and to pay him back for being kind of a douche.
Being racist and terrible, yeah.
They just make him undress.
Yeah, and give him his clothes.
I want that shirt. I don't think this shirt would fit you. No, I want that shirt. And I'm like, okay, I get the gag. And then they're like, oh, we want those pants. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? They've already paid for the cars. I understand customer service to a point. But you think if the cars are already paid for, you're just the auction guy. If some people who, you made a mistake and you're a jerk and you made a mistake based on your clientele, which he would probably be more concerned about that than being a jerk. But, like, if they were like, hey, I just bought 12 pianos from you. Yeah, that was a great sale. Thanks. Give me your shirt. What the hell? I'm not giving you my shirt. Like, it's a business transaction. Like, what do you mean give you my pants? And then the kicker was the watch.
Yeah.
Oh, and I want your watch.
Well, no. That's what I was thinking. like at some point, they always do this in movies where it's like, okay, you were the train, and now we're going to humiliate you by taking your clothes.
Yeah. But this guy had no reason to give up his clothes. He could have just said, no, that's the thing, like, here's your cars, I'll be leaving now.
I'm leaving. And, okay, I guess you can, like, complain about me being terrible on Yelp. I don't know.
You can complain to my boss about me being terrible, but I did just sell you $5 million worth of cars, so I'm probably not going to get in too much trouble. I'll probably be all right. And no, I'm not going to give you my $400,000 watch, because why would I? It's my watch. And 2, you didn't buy the watch.
Yeah, but this is his comeuppance.
This is his comeuppance, and it makes for a funny little scene. And how often are you going to see a scene?
I did enjoy how that's why, like, The Rock got into it. The Rock was, like, awkward at first, but then he's like, and your pants!
Yeah, give me your pants. Okay. And then they make some, like, weird chest hair joke. And then, so that's your B crew, and now your C crew is Dom and Brian, and they're going to a pawn shop because Brian can see a bullet and knows that bullet only can come from one kind of gun.
Yeah.
And that kind of gun is this gun.
And there's only apparently one person in all of London who sells that.
So they, I guess, maybe they just do a series of pawn shops and we don't see it, or they just go directly to that pawn shop.
What if they just spend like the afternoon just going
like
from
a 20-minute sequence and we get them just going to pawn shops.
What do you know about this bullet?
Oh, I don't have any bullet. Okay, thank you. So they go to a pawn shop filled with like Guy Ritchie Snatch style like hooligans, like and they say, "What do you know about this bullet? Who bought this gun?" The guy
gets into a fight.
Immediately gets into a fight because the guy's like, "I don't know anything about that," and then Vin Diesel starts beating the heck out of guys. Brian shuts the door.
Yeah,
guy pops in. He pulls a gun on him. Says, "Not a good idea." Guy goes,
the other
"You're
guy.
right," which I appreciated because in a lot of movies he would have tried to grab the gun and got beat up, but the guy popped in and was like, "Oh yeah, no, okay." He just popped right back out. And what did they find out about the gun?
Basically what they already knew.
So what they already knew, right? That it was Sean.
Blah blah blah.
So yeah, because he's seen Letty at this point.
And then, at what point does Brian go back to prison? Is this the next scene?
No. That's coming. That's coming down the line. So we see that they have a pawn shop fight. There's the fight with Letty and Natalina and Han and Roman and Evil Han. It just ends. Like I have a note on that. Just ends.
Is the next scene the tank scene?
I don't believe so. What tank scene?
Holy cow, there's an entire tank scene. They're driving a tank
for
miles.
That's way down the line. That's way down the line. No, that's down the line. I have shop attacked. I don't know what that means. Chase, fight with Letty and Natalina, fight with Han, Roman, and Evil Han. Yeah, and the reason why I'm talking about these out of order from what the notes actually are, which I'm guessing is the correct order because I did the notes as I was watching the movie, it's because I think it intercuts between all of them, and it's all there's just stuff happening.
Yeah.
So that's where everyone's at. I have just ends because it does. They just the fight's over with in the London Underground, and they just kind of dust themselves off, and everyone is like, well, I guess there's no police here whatsoever after all of this, and we're just going to walk away. And I believe that takes us back to another sequence where we are at the base. And I don't remember what they're talking about at the base. Is this where where they have the hook gun? And they accidentally shoot the hook gun, and they almost like...
In between Han and...
Yeah, and there's a couple little gags there. And then I do like Roman constantly talking about baby oil every time The Rock is in the room. Like, does everyone smell baby oil? And at the end, he's like, "Hi, Jack, some baby oil. The Rock is here." I mean, Roman is good in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can see from this movie why Roman continues to be in the movies. I just wish they gave him better material than he's had in the past two that we watched. So you are absolutely right. I was wrong. You were right. This is when they start talking about Braga. Oh, because I think they got the gun. They linked the gun back to Braga. You don't know who Braga is.
No.
Braga is the main bad guy from the fourth one. Okay. So they bring him back for the sixth one. And this is when Brian has to break back into prison. They have to go talk to Braga because they have to see how Braga is connected to Shaw. And Brian wants to know how Letty got involved with Shaw if Letty's still alive. What you don't know from the fourth one is Letty works for Braga, and you find out... No, you did find out in the seventh one. Man, folks, this is the problem with watching these movies out of order. You did find out did you see... Was the seventh one where they have a fight, Brian and Dominic Toretto, because he finds out that Brian was the one that put Letty undercover in Braga's organization?
No, because Brian tells him later on. In the sixth one.
Okay, but in the fourth one, you find out that Brian put Letty...
Yeah.
All right,
because Brian's
like
just
a
having
fool,
like
I watched the fourth one just
flashbacks.
for fun. Like a fool, I watched the fourth one just for fun like 2 weeks ago. And it's screwing up everything. Yeah, and I regret it, because now I'm all jumbled. I should not have done that.
Maybe tomorrow I'll watch the second one just to really mess with everything.
You can watch the second one, because that has nothing to do with any of it. It's just got Brian and and Roman in it, and they're like racing in Miami. It's just a completely typical like 2000 sequel where it's like, we can get one of the guys back. That's fine. He's in Miami. So anyway, we'll get to that. Too Fast, Too Furious with the number 2s.
I remember the 2s.
So he has to break into prison. The dangerous part being is they're all wanted men. They can't even go back into the States, let alone.
So they make a big deal about him being wanted, and I can't do this, I can't, how are you going to do this, blah, blah, I have to.
And my point being, he's got to go get peace of mind, not only for the mission, but he wants to find out what happened to Letty for his own peace of mind, because he put her in that situation.
So, big deal. We think to ourselves, okay, well, this is going to be like, we're going to either break out of Alcatraz or try to do this.
Yeah.
Next scene, he's walking out of an airplane, cuffed.
Yes.
And it's like, then he talks to his friend who's like, I only got you this for a day, so you better hurry up.
Well, that's a return character, and that means something if you've seen the 4th one.
Yeah, I have.
That's like a rival FBI agent guy that he's always butting heads with. That the fact that this guy is helping Brian do this prison thing it's a big deal that they got this guy to do this. So they get him in, and he's like, "Oh man, Braga's in solitary confinement.
So now we're gonna have
I didn't make a deal to get you into solitary confinement.
So now what are you gonna do? Something. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna beat you up.
Yeah, obviously that was the thing that you were gonna see. Did you telegraph that a mile away?
Once
you got to do something really bad to get into solitary. So once you get into general population, do something really bad, and it's like. And by the way, you only have 6 hours to do something really bad to get thrown into solitary confinement.
And we better hope the whole system moves pretty quick.
Yeah, really, that you're not going to be sitting in this waiting room for 5 of those 6 hours. So he headbutts him and breaks his nose. And
immediately in solitary.
He's immediately into solitary confinement.
And then immediately the bad guys show up.
The bad guys show up on their own.
Yeah. Well,
does this bad guy just have run of this prison?
Apparently.
In movie prison, the main bad guy does have run of the prison.
Yeah.
So they come and they talk to him, and they do you didn't think we would recognize you? And we alluded to the timeline, and the timeline is Brian is there under some kind of false identity, but of course he's still going to be actually fingerprinted and stuff, and when that runs through the system, they're going to find out who it really is.
Instantly.
And they're not going to, he'll never leave jail at that point, I guess, because it's like, hey, you're in jail.
Because they couldn't have gotten him out the first time after killing 5 people in a solitary cell.
Yeah. If they could get him out for that, well, we can't let you go now.
Oh man, you were found with 5 dead bodies.
You were the FBI guy, so why couldn't the FBI guy get you back out for any number of reasons?
FBI can just make deals.
So Braga comes up, and they're doing the thing where like, you didn't think we would recognize you? Of course we recognize you. And he's talking to him. And they're kind of talking about Letty, and there's more flashbacks, and Braga is doing the, like, bad guy monologuing where Brian's like, hey, you would have absolutely no reason to tell me why you did all this stuff, and you hate my guts because I put you in prison, but could you just ease my conscience a little and tell me why you did all that stuff? And Braga's like, you'll be dead by morning anyway. I'm going to tell you all this stuff. And then he's like, I was glad when she was dead and da-da-da-da.
Yeah, and then blammo.
And then he goes, you're lucky this door is separating us. And then I love that little part where he's like, he turns and like motions at the guy, the door opens. And the look on Brian's face is the look that you would have on your face. Oh no. Another really kind of cool, very close quarters fight scene.
Yeah, Shanks are involved.
And he's knocks the other 2 guys out. He's got Braga down on, like, the bed or the mat or whatever. He's stabbing him in the shoulder. And he says, tell me, what I need to know. And not about Letty, but about where's Shaw. And he goes, Shaw's everywhere. I can't remember.
Yeah, it just to be like...
He's everywhere.
It just to be like Kaiser Sose.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's like Kaiser Sose. And... he's like, he's everywhere, if you're sitting in a restaurant 5 tables away from Shaw, it's because he wants you to be sitting at that table at that time. You don't get close to him unless he's planned it.
He'll be over there eating chicken soup.
I'll take the tomato, and they'll bring you the tomato. He wanted you to have it. They really had chicken noodle soup in back that night, but he wanted you to have tomato. So Brian's like, oh boy, and then Brian takes off. And in the meantime, we have to have a street race sequence. It's the Fast and the Furious.
Mm-hmm.
Past couple movies, they've got them out pretty early.
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
There's the weird race between Dom and Letty.
Yeah, Hans comes and he's like, hey, I heard from so-and-so that there's going to be a big street race tonight. And Dom is like, oh, Letty will be there. Mm-hmm. So this is his chance to...
I was just on streetrace.com
forums.
Yeah,
I was on streetrace.com forums. There's going to be the big London street race tonight. If you go there, Letty's probably going to be there. And no one else is going to be street racing.
I don't remember me, but they call me Letty.
Yeah. And... question mark Letty, question mark. But did we completely skip past the point where the most gullible bad guys in the world see the picture where they get the like dossier on the Fast Crew, the reverse scene, and the one guy is reasonably like, wait a second, here's a picture of you with all of them.
Yeah.
And then Owen's just like, eh.
She forgot stuff.
There's a couple moments when you think that maybe Owen cares about her. Because we skipped past that. They killed the little lackey at the mechanic place.
Yeah.
And she's like, Jimmy's dead. And he's like, well, he made a mistake. And she's like, okay, that's kind of warped. Would you care if any of us died? And it kind of shows all of them looking down because they know that he doesn't care if any of them die. Well, and then they have a talk like, I saw something in you when you didn't remember anything.
And this is what amazes me because, like, and again, back to tank scene, whenever we get there.
It's coming.
But, like, she's always, like, blown away by the crew she's hanging out with that kill people left and right.
Yeah.
Is apparently moralless.
Yeah. And I guess, is she okay because she lost her memory? I mean, you're pretty guilty. If you don't know who you are, but you still know that maybe running over a bunch of people with tanks on the freeway is probably a bad thing, but you don't get a pass because you lost your memory. But yeah, she's amazed by this, and they have a couple talks where he's like, I saw something. It seems like he cares about her a little more. Not really. No. But it seems like that throughout the movie. So Vin goes to the street race. Mm-hmm. And...
Street race.
Yeah, they have a street race. They have a street race.
I'm sorry. This is the thing. It's like, okay, they have a race. And then I think, is that when he does, like, his little, like, convincing, like, I remember you got this star from when I, the night before you left when I beat you.
They do a very long street race through the streets of London. One of the street races where they're, like, weaving in and out of, like, cars and stuff like that. It's not just, like, not on a back alley somewhere. They're not on a back alley. They're, like, it's a we're driving through traffic street race. And they get to the end of the race, which I never understand in these movies how they know the race is over. Because they're not going in a circle back to the point. So I guess it must be a predetermined, like when we get to this street corner, the race is over. It must be predetermined. And they pull off to one of these classic Fast and the Furious, like backway alleys, underpass things. And she gets out of the car. And, they're bantering while they're driving, like, oh, this guy's crazy. Like, you ain't seen crazy. And I've been told. And they get out of the car, and she's like, oh, you sure know how to drive. And yes, he starts he's like, I know you got that scar when we were 15. I liked that little moment.
I did like it, but at the same time...
Some idiot 15-year-old kid was trying to impress you and almost cut your arm off. And she's like, let me guess, you beat him up for me. He's like, no, I was that idiot 15-year-old kid.
This is exactly the thing. So, like, if I were Letty at this point, and I have no memories, and he's like, you got this star because I was an idiot kid.
Yeah.
And then, here's another star. When that happened...
Oh, you were with me.
Yeah.
Here's another scar.
I'm like, okay, so basically, I forgot all the times you were abusing me.
You got this scar on the reefs.
Yeah.
I got the same scar. You took that to a dark place. I didn't pick up on that
Here's
at all.
where I put out my cigarettes on you.
I didn't pick up on that at all. But no, and I thought you were going to go another way with it. Why am I with these bloodthirsty killers and terrorists when these people seem to, one, care about me, and two, clearly do know me. So maybe why I am trying to figure out who I am, maybe I'll go with the people that...
If some guy just showed up now and started, like, going through over your body...
Oh, that's true, because you don't know where... You make a beautiful point, because you don't know where the scars are from, because you don't remember. And it's a big deal if you remember and you're like... Oh, yeah. You like in classic sci-fi, like...
You got that star when we were chasing the aliens the one night.
Classic, like, sci-fi body snatcher stuff where I'm like, Leif, where did I get this scar? And you're like, that's where you ran into my door when we were excited the morning when we were going to see William Shatner opening a parking garage. That's a true story. And I'd be like, okay, this is Leif, because only Leif would know that that's how I got that scar.
Yeah.
You're right. So she has no reason to believe. You could say those scars are from anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. But she cruises off.
Yeah.
And he's feeling good because he's starting to make a little bit of headway. He's starting to win her over a little bit. And that's when another car pulls up.
Yep.
And it's Shaw. And they have their usual Fast and the Furious, like we saw a lot with Deckard Shaw. Where they're like talking. And Vin Diesel's character seems to really love tough guy talking. He seems to respect. There's a little bit of that character, Dominic Toretto, that because he's at heart a criminal, loves and respects criminals a little bit.
And I do love the fact that, like, in the first part, I just remembered it, is after the first big, huge chase.
Yeah.
Shaw's back at his base, and they're like, who are these numbskull, idiots?
Yeah.
And then Shaw's like, they almost got us. Show them respect.
Yeah. Shaw respects him.
So, like, there's all of a sudden that, like,
there's that mutual respect
of...
Because they're joking, and Shaw's like, he does a joke, and Vin kind of smiles, and it's like, okay.
You grew up on the streets of L.A. selling stolen DVD players.
Yeah.
And first of all, the only thing I was thinking the whole time was, like, remember when DVD players were valuable enough to, like, steal and sell?
It's true.
I mean, nowadays you can buy one at, like, Target for $5.
I think in the 2000 Fast and the Furious, that is what I honestly think they are selling DVD players.
I mean, at this point, we might as well also be like, remember when you had that whole beeper thing going on?
So they...
with your beepers.
I don't want to say bond a little, but there's that kind of like they're sizing each other up, we respect each other maybe a little.
Things go south when he starts knocking his family.
Yeah. And there's still a little bit of like we're kind of involved with the same woman in one way or another. But there's enough here where I feel like maybe in this next one, if they also have to shoehorn Owen Shaw into being a good guy. You've seen both of these now.
Yeah.
Is making Owen Shaw a good guy in the next one possibly an easier or harder sell than making Deckard Shaw?
Well, he was... based
on character and performance. Because we know performance-wise... Jason Statham is just too good and lovable. You got to bring him back.
Yeah.
So and unfortunately... Who plays Owen Shaw? Luke Evans. I like him, but he doesn't have the same...
I could see him being, like, there for little bits.
So
like,
character-wise, you could see him be redeemed.
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to babysit your kid alone, so I'm going to need to call in my brother to kill people randomly and also babysit.
Having seen the 7th one and having now seen the 6th one, I feel like, considering the actions that both took place in their respective villain plots... I think Owen Shaw is easily more redeemable than Deckard Shaw. He's just kind of a thug. But anyway, we talked about that.
Well, this is the thing. And to get back to the tank scene eventually.
We're getting to the tank scene. There's maybe three more notes, and then we'll get to the tank scene. All of his
stuff was done in the moment, so you can argue that he was just overcome with emotion.
Yeah. So Shaw shows up, and then he's going to kill Vin Diesel, and he's like, well, this is where your story comes to an end.
And then there's the laser.
Light, and then Vin Diesel's like, and he looks down, and Shaw looks down, oh, touche. They love it. They're loving every minute of this. He's got a laser on him. He's like, let me guess, that 2-bit cop, Hobbs. Now, I was going to say, when I'm watching this the first time, I'm like, how did they know that Letty and Vin Diesel were going to end up at that underpass at that moment to both have snipers there?
Well, they were all following it on streetracing.com.
Oh, yeah, streetracing.com. That's a hot website. We might have to we're going to probably... And you can also find us at Fastback Podcast on streetracing.com forum. Check us out there. Leave us a message. But... they have snipers, so it's a draw.
Yeah, snipers.
And they get off, and The Rock comes down, and he's like, aren't you glad? And this is one of my favorite beats of The Rock and Dominic Toretto, maybe in the series. I say that a lot, but I did enjoy this little beat where he's like, good thing I put a tracker on your car. And and Vin Diesel goes, you mean this tracker? Meaning that not only Vin Diesel's character gets to be smart enough to find it, but trusting enough to say, okay, you're not secretly putting a tracker on me, but I'll put it in my pocket because you probably had a good reason. They're starting to gel as a team. All right, so let's brush through the next few things. Tracker, talked about. I did put a note that I like how they're having to find this guy. They're constantly having to go back to the base and be like, what Shaw's next step.
Yeah.
This is what we've learned. Not like Deckard, who just kept showing up, or Cypher, who just kept showing up. They're having to do some kind of like detective and actual spy work.
They're at least feigning having to work.
They're having to do some work to find Shaw. So then they realize that they're at a NATO base. They think again. This is the second time that they're smarter than whatever military organization is chasing them, because they do realize that, okay, and I, for the life of me, don't remember how, but they realize that Shaw is going to go to this NATO base because that's where the peace is, and he's going to go after the peace. Mm-hmm. Which, if you knew that's what he wanted and you knew that's where the peace was, I would think that doesn't take too much detective work, all this running around to know he's going to go there. But whatever. And you see they're there, and then like, we found this guy, and he was turning off the security system. He's like, you got people on the inside. And at some point earlier in the movie, we also saw The Rock go to like a police station and like assault a police officer, like crushing his hand by saying like, why do the cameras keep turning off every time one of these guys pull a job?
The police officer though did sass The Rock.
He sassed The Rock, and
so he deserved it.
It was clear that one of them were in on it.
Yeah.
And The Rock didn't seem to care enough at that point to find out who the villainous traitor was. He just said, don't turn off the cameras. We want to watch these guys. So they're going to go to the NATO base, and then it dawns on him again. Wait a minute. He's not going to the base.
Yeah, because Shaw only lets you know where Shaw is when Shaw wants to know when
This
Shaw
is when Brian comes back with that golden bit of knowledge.
Yes.
This is where the Braga thing plays in. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is where the Braga thing plays in, and he goes, well, if that's the case, he wouldn't just let us find that mole at the military base. Oh, he's attacking the convoy. Because wouldn't you know that other than keeping this device at a highly restricted and well-guarded military base, it's much safer being transported in cars from the people who are professionals at stealing things with cars. Much safer. Get it in a car, send it across a bridge.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even that. It's not even in the car, because
but like you said at the last one,
in the car,
they keep doing things with cars to try to. You said this at the last episode. They keep doing things with their plans. All involve cars to combat people whose skill is stealing things out of moving cars. Here's an idea. Here's how you end the Fast and Furious franchise. Where's the MacGuffin? It's right in that house. Is there a car in that house? Nope. We learned our lesson from the last time when we put the car on top of that 70-story building. That if there's a car anywhere inside, 4 windows. There's just a door in there. Is the door locked? Nope. We're not even locking the door. But there's not a car in there. Is the room a garage? No. It's a regular room.
Could a car fit in the room?
No, you cannot get a car into the room.
What if we disassembled a car and then put it back together?
They would. It'd be like a classic old-fashioned 1800s locked room mystery. How did they get it? You know, those all like...
Actually, no.
How did he die? There was no knife. It was an ice pick that made out of ice that melted.
That was already done in 7 when they were in that skyscraper.
Yeah, it was.
That had the car in the small room.
That's what I'm saying. Well, they were fools. They had a car in there. But anyway, they built the car. Johnny Cash's One Piece at a Time. I would love it if Johnny Cash's One Piece at a Time shows up somewhere in one of these movies. Took a 54 carburetor, 55 carburetor. But anyway, now we have a copyright strike from the Johnny Cash estate. Dang it. Our first one. So they realize, and now finally, and I've talked enough on this, but it's because this movie, even though you saw it last night, it seems like you maybe saw it 2 years ago. Finally.
No.
Say it. You've said it 17 times. Now you can say it.
We're getting ready for the tank scene.
They got a tank.
Well, they don't know they have a tank yet.
They don't know they have a tank yet.
So they're chasing the convoy.
Yes.
And it goes predictably action-packed.
Yeah, and they're on a very crowded... Is it a bridge?
Yeah. Well, they get to be on a bridge.
Okay.
They're not on the bridge yet.
All right. But they're in heavy traffic.
Yeah.
Okay.
They board the truck and get in, and then Dom's crew, action happens.
Yes.
You think they stopped the truck. Oh, Yeah, you think they stopped it because...
They're using those harpoon guns that they keep on showing throughout. Tej has made a better harpoon gun.
Yeah.
Those things come up a lot.
Oh, yeah. Someone bought stock in those harpoon guns.
Yeah, those harpoon guns are integral to this whole entire movie.
They stop the truck.
Yeah, they stop the truck.
But then that's when the tank shoots out of it.
And presumably just crushes the truck driver, who probably is working for them.
Yeah.
Jerry, the truck driver, is
Well, it doesn't matter because, I mean, wasn't the truck already on flames? He was probably already...
He was probably already dead, but they don't care. They bust out of the front of it with a tank.
Yeah. And that's when Roman's like, they got a tank!
Which I guess would be a very surprising moment if you're watching it for the first time in theaters, but more than likely it was probably you already saw it in a trailer at that point, but who knows. They got a tank. And in the tank is Evil Han, Letty, Owen Shaw, and is Ivan Drago in the tank?
I don't know if he's in the tank or not.
You were going to mention him, but he comes up in a big way.
He shows up later, for sure. We've already seen him, I think.
Yeah, we've seen him, because he's the one who in the scene is smart enough to be like, hey, what gives? Why are you in pictures with all our enemies? That I have a problem with this because And then she says something like, she says a great line that I'm not going to repeat because it's not the language that I want to have on this podcast, and it's not a word that I usually word anyway. But when she says, hey, Drago, I thought you were team tough guy. Don't make me come over there and prove that you're on team.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, so, man, you've been waiting to talk about this tank sequence for an hour and 25 minutes, so lay it out. We got a tank.
So the tank is just cruising, and it's cruising. Yes. It's like top speed cruising.
Oh, yeah. Crushing people.
Oh, yeah, it's just crushing cars, just crushing people.
Murdering, just crushing people left and right.
As they're trying to stop this, because when someone's in a tank, you think, well, we have cars.
They have cars.
Clearly, this will be what we do.
Yes, and if you think that, if you're listening to this podcast and you've never seen this movie and you go, car stopping a tank, that's far-fetched. No, wait till we get to the end. Yeah. Car stopping a tank will seem like a normal thing by the time we get to the end of this movie. It's just a...
Letty is surprised, like, why are you killing all these people? I thought you were good. I don't understand. I mean, she doesn't say good, but...
Can I ask one thing real quick? If you could enlighten me and refresh my memory, because this speaks to your Letty point that you've been making. What was Shaw's endgame if he got all three pieces of the device? I would assume to wreak some kind of havoc.
Well, the theory was he'd sell it to someone who would then... I think that's what it was. He'd sell it to, like, someplace who would then, like... make a country go dark, and then they would apparently kill everybody or
something like that. But again, you're absolutely right about her motivation. You're running with a crew of terrorists who are trying to steal major weapons. Why are you acting innocent and surprised when they're doing terrible stuff? Like, you knew what the jobs... If you knew that you're stealing those weapons...
Like, oh man,
to sell on the black market.
I was just in this for making a lot of money from the weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, I was just in the... Yeah, but anyway, so...
We didn't have to actually kill people.
We didn't... With a tank running over cars. Crushing cars.
Yeah.
Killing people.
Oh, it was...
And there's people jumping out of cars and screaming.
I have to say, this was actually probably the most brutal thing I've seen in all of these movies.
Yeah.
And I mean... A lot of people die in these movies.
A lot of people would probably die from, stuff off to the periphery. Yeah. Like, this was an explosion, and you think, well, there was somebody sitting in that office building.
And 8...
But this is just a guy driving home from work.
When the cars, fly out of the car...
Oh, they're landing on somebody.
They're
landing on top of other cars. It's killing people.
But, that's not...
That's not this.
As traumatic.
This isn't people just driving along the street and a tank rolls over and crushes the driver's side.
And they go out of their way in the movie to show, people getting out of their cars and screaming.
Yeah, thank you.
And,
So I guess out of their way, you would think to show, don't worry, no one's getting hurt here. You see them getting out. But you didn't see all those other people get out. Oh, no. So it's more proving to the point that there's terrible stuff happening.
People who are just, cruising along and then, tank.
This is an incredible sequence.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those sequences, though, where there's so much going on.
Oh, yeah.
That it's just broad beats. I have a few notes here that I'll let you speak upon when I say the note. Okay. Somehow, Roman ends up in front of the tank.
Okay? I was going to say, I don't remember how he did that. He got up there somehow?
He got up in front of him somehow, and instead of being able to crush over him, somehow he gets wedged. He's going fast. He wants to hit the Nas.
Yeah. he gets hit by the tank.
Yeah.
And now he's getting kind of like pushed along because he's not.
He's getting pushed by the tank. He tries to hit his nos to speed
Doesn't
ahead.
work.
It doesn't work.
He's
in a lot of trouble. Oh wait.
He has a harpoon.
At first, the one guy tries to shoot him with a missile, and I think he hits the brakes, so the missile flies past his car, and that's when he gets caught up in the tank. And the guy's like, "You're lucky, buddy."
Yeah.
All right, so Roman's in front of the tank, being pushed by the tank. He's got to get out of there.
He gets a harpoon.
Wraps
it around the barrel of the tank.
Because he knows what he's about to do?
I don't know.
Or he realizes, like, well, I got to get out of my car anyway. It's clever what he does.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a plan in his head. It has to be, because why else would he do it?
He's just operating on pure instinct.
And then who saves him? He does a classic Fast and Furious car jump.
I think he jumps out of the car.
Brian, yes.
Yeah. And he jumps and Brian gets him, and then...
He jumps from his car to the top of Brian's car, lands on it, even though we know how that's not how the real world works. You couldn't jump off of a car moving 90 miles an hour, land on top of a car moving 90 miles an hour.
Shut up. Yes, you could.
Not only have sustained no injuries, but be able to grab onto that little space between your car door and your roof with your fingers and just be able to latch.
Shut up.
All right, I'm sorry. You could do that. And he slides into the car, and they're like, yeah! And what he's done is he's created an anchor.
Yeah.
Because...
So then, like, instantly the car gets shoved under the tank.
Well, the car gets shoved under the tank, and then it's dragging.
Yeah, it's dragging.
He's like, we got an anchor.
And that's when they're like, yeah. And then, because then Brian's whole goal is to notch the car. This is when they did on the bridge.
Yeah.
His whole goal is to notch the thing off of there.
Because do they think that basically piece of scrap metal at that time is going to pull that tank off of...
Oh, that's maybe...
Off of the bridge?
Maybe it'll wedge,
slow it down?
And then, like, the harpoon will...
They're wanting to do something with that where they knock it off the bridge.
And I forget what happens next.
Well, what happens next is great.
Well, no, I remember. I know that. I just don't know the circumstances.
He tells Letty to get out and cut the wire.
That's what. Yeah.
And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, get out there and cut the wire.
Because that's
you knew what kind of boss I was.
If you're drinking the tank, why couldn't you just spin the turret around and let the thing kind of slide off when you?
Oh, that's a good point.
But, anyway, regardless.
Letty, get up there, and he's like, here's your happy ending, because he doesn't care about Letty at all.
Yeah.
And then we get to it.
Yeah, so then, because ramps follow Dom around.
Yeah.
Well, they had shot the bridge, and I forget why they decided to shoot the bridge for some reason.
Yeah, they're like, they shot the bridge because they're hoping that the rubble from the bridge will either land on top of the people chasing them or stop them. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't, because it makes
also whoever was driving across that bridge, which if you saw the wide shot, there were many cars driving across that bridge, are not driving across that bridge anymore. And Dom does his super, he grimaces, and he hits the nos, and he gets right under there.
He shifts. Goes up the ramp.
So how does the tank flip? Because why did he get stolen from the tank?
Yeah.
Oh, because they knock the...
Yeah, they finally knock the car off.
But they don't knock it off when Letty's on top of the tank, because that'd be stupid. She's up there to cut the tank free.
It's...
Somehow the tank flips.
Yeah. And Dom uses this opportunity while flying through the air to also jump out of his car.
But he's on a different bridge.
Well, he's on the next bridge. The bridges are, parallel. There's a lane for oncoming and...
Okay. All right.
It's like a divided highway, but
again, we live in the Midwest, so there's not double bridges and secret tunnels. There's just straight roads. That's what we're used to.
If we're wild, we get on a gravel road.
Yeah, so we see the incredible thing.
Over there. Dom jumps out of his car.
Well, he doesn't jump out of his car.
Well, he's thrown out of his car.
That's a very important distinction. He's riding the hood like a surfboard, crashes into it, and uses that to propel himself through the air. Because remember, his car swerves over.
Yeah, and it goes up the ramp. Oh, yeah.
And he crashes, and he flies off of his car. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take this from you because you've been waiting the whole entire episode for this.
I clearly have forgotten half of it by now.
She's thrown from the tank.
Yeah, she's thrown from the tank.
You're not going to see the direction. You're not going to see my hands. But, okay. In one hand, I have a pen. In one hand, I have a empty can of the delicious, thirst-quenching, caffeine-free beverage, Squirt. This episode of the Fast Pack
brought
to you by Squirt and Office Depot pens.
The brands that you forgot.
Yeah. She's flying this way.
Yeah.
He's flying a different way.
Well, he's kind of flying he's flying towards her, regardless.
I seem to remember this man somehow shifting his body in midair. No, he catches her and shifts his body, yes?
Yeah.
So she's flying. She's thrown from the tank.
Yeah.
Perfect, as we've seen time and time again, Fast and Furious timing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's thrown from his car.
They're no longer in control of their own bodies.
They're no longer in control of their own bodies, and hitting each other would break most of the bones in their body.
Yeah, hit each other. He spins then.
He spins in midair.
And lands, and while he does crack a windshield when he lands on it, he's fine.
He's fine, she's fine. The amazing thing is, at this point, this is not an original thought. You're going to hear this in any podcast you've heard about this movie. We've said this a couple times. You're going to hear about this in any movie review. It's because it's one of those things that is so out there and so obvious that you can't talk about it without talking about this. Mm-hmm. They're superheroes at this point. He's flying. He's changing his body's direction in midair.
Yeah.
Catching a damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
Turning his body again, much in the way The Rock was able to twist and contort his body in free fall, so he wouldn't land on top of Elena when he falls 10 stories.
Yeah.
And I like how that's a fisherman's tale every time we talk about it. Like, it was 3 stories, then it was 5 stories, now it's 10. By the last episode, there'll be 100 stories that The Rock fell out of.
He fell from the Sears Tower.
And he lands on top of a car. They're fine. This is the point where, like, we'll have to see how much absurd stuff there is in 5. Is this physically, that beat right there, the most absurd superhero-esque thing that you've seen in one of these movies so far? 8 is grounded compared to this sequence. There's wackadoo stuff in 8 with cars, but I'm talking about physically their bodies not being able to be injured. Was this the most superhero-esque out of the 3 you've seen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because everything else involves cars. They crash cars and they're fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a car, you flip over, blah, blah, you're going to get hurt. But
keep in mind, 7, he goes down a mountain and falls off the top of a parking garage. And he's fine, but he's always in his car. It seems like in this universe, if you're in your car, you're protected. Yeah. That's your armor. That's your shell.
It's your safe.
But in this, he was doing stuff that's like...
Oh, yeah, no, he
superhuman.
I was surprised, especially since, like, they said, they covered their bases with The Rock having a cast on his arm, briefly.
Well, that's...
But, yeah, this one, like, it's like you landed on your back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And that's my next note on this. As always, there's no repercussions for this huge cat chase sequence. I want to say that at the next scene, they're just back at the base.
Yeah.
There's no, like, wait a second, who are you guys? The police are here. There's helicopters everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're just back at base.
Oh, but we missed it, though. He went back. Wasn't this when they have
Shaw. They do have Shaw, okay? Yeah. And at this point, and we're about to spoil it, The Rock is still very much officially an agent.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's how they're getting out of all this. The Rock, they're with me. Okay. Before we move on, I do want to ask you, though, because it was so similar, this bridge chase, jumping from car to car sequence, very similar sequence in the very next movie. It's one thing if it was like 4 movies later and you're like, they kind of did this before. But a lot, just extremely similar in 7 when they're chasing the convoy with the bus that has Ramsey in it. How did this one stack up to the Ramsey rescue sequence? Did you like the rescue Ramsey sequence better? Did you like this one better? I kind of like this one a little better.
I liked it better, but...
Even though
it's like trying to say, like, which of your kids do you love most?
That's true.
Really. Because they're different. I mean,
there's great moments in both.
Yeah.
I mean, this one you have Vin Diesel jumping across the air like a superhero.
The other one you have driving down a cliff.
You have Brian running up a falling bus and being able to jump off and grab onto the bumper of a drifting car. So both great sequences. So I would say this one was.
I don't like saying this because it's not true at all.
All right.
But this one was more real.
Yeah, this one was
while
more... Yeah.
the other one was almost mythical.
Yeah, this one was more grounded as far as an action movie, while the other one was... They're jumping out of a plane. Yeah. Now it's a chase. Now it's a bus sequence. Yeah. Now they're running through the jungle. Now they're falling down a cliff. This one was straightforward, like point A to point B. Yeah. Here's your action sequence.
We're all in cars.
We're all in cars.
Started out in cars, and we're
pretty much going to end in
cars. There.
Yeah.
Not in cars.
Not in cars. So we think at this point that they're all regrouping at base. They're having character moments. Yeah. Letty is having a moment where she's there and she feels like, okay, I still don't remember a lot of this, but thank you. And military guy comes in and says, well, she's under arrest too. And she was with them. And they're like, no. And military guy he's right. Like, yeah. Why are we just... No. She's with us. She was with us the whole time. And maybe if you had to get out of that situation, I'd buy that you could sell that. That you could say that if Hobbs wanted to be a good guy about it, which we see that he is, he could say, yeah, she was a plant.
Blah, 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 undercover.
Yeah, she was undercover, whatever. So that I buy 100%, yeah. That they wouldn't pursue Letty as the criminal that she has been with Shaw for the past whatever time she's been with them. And they think, we're going to go and we're going to talk to Owen. And they go and they talk to Owen, and he's all smiles. Mm-hmm. And then The Rock comes back, and they're having their moments, and like Giselle and Han.
Yeah, they're all
like, what are we going to do? What did Giselle and Han do in the big action sequence that we just talked about? Just driving, right? I don't remember anything.
They did stuff.
They did stuff. I don't remember too much that stuck out from them. I don't remember too much of Taj in that sequence.
He was up on the bridge. Taj was on the bridge.
Oh, yeah, he was up on the bridge because he's like, they got a tank. He's the one who says they got a tank. I don't remember what Han and Giselle did, but they're there.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, so are we going to, where are we going to go? What's our next adventure?
This whole episode is them like...
Oh, the whole episode is like...
Is them like, we're going to...
Han's going to die soon.
Yeah.
Remember, did you watch any of The Walking Dead?
Oh, yeah.
You did watch a couple seasons of The Walking Dead. It was very reminiscent of me to like, why is this prisoner character who's had 5 lines in the whole series having a whole episode about him?
Well, that's the thing.
Oh, he's going to die in this one, that's why.
Well, that's what amazed me about it, because it was like, you only get beat over the head with sentimental stuff.
Because we all know what happens in Tokyo. Yeah. We know Han dies in Tokyo. And there's so many times when he's like, gonna go to Tokyo now, folks. Have fun in Tokyo, Han.
Hey, Han.
It's always been my dream. Nothing will go wrong there.
Stay safe.
So they're talking, and she's like, let's stay in one place. Yeah. Let's go settle down.
So it's all like, we're gonna get
yes.
Yeah, it's Han.
Because you've been watching these two. You haven't been, but most people have been watching these two for the past 3 movies. Yeah. And you're like, Han and Giselle, we love them. And so The Rock busts in.
Yeah.
Something you gotta hear. And
we still have half hour of movie to make.
Yeah, we still have some time left in the movie. And lo and behold, oh yeah, you forgot that your wife and kid is sitting at home somewhere. And the guy said...
And do you remember that whole thing he said about family?
Yeah, the whole thing that he... that's what he says when you say, no, it took a wrong turn when he starts talking to his family.
He pounded that.
I can reach out and get your family anywhere. Even the ones who might not be here right now. Not even just right here at the bridge. I mean in London.
Maybe someone who...
They could be back in L.A., possibly.
Maybe one of them has a small child. The other one being a wife of one of your people.
I'm proving that I'm able to get people and do anything anywhere I want.
Yeah.
So he comes in and he says, why don't you call Mia? And Brian gets like a mean look on his face, and he's like, oh, you son of a...
And then flashback.
Yeah, we flash back to seeing Elena, who they have to shove in this movie somehow. They really do, like... With the exception of Letty, they introduce these female characters, and they gotta find a way. Okay, what do we do with them? How crappy is that? And that makes no sense. Why is Elena not in this movie more? She's The Rock's partner. Why is she reduced to being hanging out at the house?
Because she's guarding Mia, apparently.
So is she officially guarding Mia on, like, rock business?
I don't know why.
So maybe that's why they're not surprised about Mia, but then at the same time, then why are they worried that he can get to Mia if she's being guarded? I just thought about that. I feel, man, does Elena constantly get screwed in these movies.
Maybe she was just hanging out.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure she's still The Rock's partner because she's his partner at the end when she shows up with him at the barbecue. We'll get to that. But she's his partner at the end, so why is she regulated to, like, babysitting? They wanted her in the movie. They didn't have a spot for her in the whole movie. They do like to bring actors back.
But she does watch the kid.
She watches the kid.
So she takes the kid.
She takes the kid, but she only takes the kid because she's there.
Yeah.
My point is, why is she not on the mission? And the point is because they wanted to introduce not Mia. Maybe because we all know we're about to find out not Mia is a traitor.
Yeah.
Not Mia, not Elena. Not Elena is a traitor. And if you had Elena in that role as his partner, you would have to make Elena the traitor, which nobody would have liked. So but they still want her in the movie, so they're like, hey, actress, you were great in Fast 5. Come on back and be in Fast 6. Okay, that'll be great. I love being part of this franchise. What am I going to do? You're going to be in the very beginning and the very end. You're basically going to be stuck. You're going to be with the women, you know. You're going to be back at home with the ladies. You're going to be
sleeping with Vin Diesel, and then you're also going to be babysitting.
Yeah. Well, what happens to me in the 7th movie? Well, you fall out of a building. Oh, man. Can't get much worse than that. Hey, do you want to come back and be in the 8th movie? I mean, I guess. I haven't done much in the past 2. Do I have a big role in this?
Kind of.
Yeah. So she is there. They kidnap Mia.
Yeah.
They don't get the son because she gets away with the son. You're right. She gets away with the son. So she serves a purpose in that point. However, constructed that is. And they have Mia.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, we got Mia. You're going to let us leave. Or we are going to, I'll make the phone call.
Yeah.
I'll kill her. That's it. Let us walk out of here.
And then, British Army guy
is right again.
Voice of reason is like
says, "Hey, that sucks, but we just spent 2 years facing these guys. They're multiple murderers.
We got them now. We have the stuff.
They're here. We have the weapons. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because he's gonna take the weapon. He's like, you're gonna let me walk out of here with that.
Yeah."
And you're not going to do a thing about it. I'm going to take off in a plane. If you touch us, just take a step. I'll kill your wife. And they leave.
No, no. The Rock.
Oh, yeah, that's huge, yeah.
Because there's being the voice of reason, the British guy's like, nah, you can't do this. All of a sudden, The Rock just pulls a gun on him.
He goes, oh, it's happening like that.
Yeah.
And The Rock finally, at this point, is part of the crew.
Yeah.
He's part of the crew.
I do love, then, that he pulls the gun out.
Yes.
He's like, we're letting him go.
Yeah.
But then he has his doubts, and he looks over at Dom, he's like, you do realize the pardon's off the table now, right?
Yes.
So, like, apparently, if Dom was like, yeah, this is kind of stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Then he would have just, like, lowered his gun and been like, no hard feelings.
It's a Yorgi and the Detonator moment from Triple X. It's like you've backed yourself into a corner where if what you don't think is going to happen, it's going to be really awkward for everybody. So this is one of my favorite lines, and you just said it. He says, as soon as he walks out that door, words like amnesty and pardon walk out with them. And then Dom says, and I don't understand this at all, he says, those words walked out the day we were born. Do you remember that? It's like,
it doesn't make any sense.
It's just a thing to say.
So he's like, apparently we were destined for.
I think so, but it's just one of those A-B moments that we talk about a dialogue that are in all of these movies that I enjoy so much. So then he says, are you coming, honey? And you go, and if you're a moron, you watch this and you go, was Letty a traitor the whole time? Because they give you a beat for all the morons to really think about that. It's like 30 seconds. You coming, baby? Oh! And it's not Letty that's the traitor this whole time. Because the whole time they're saying there's somebody on the inside.
Yeah.
That's another bit of information that they get from Braga. He's always got people on the inside. Brian goes back. They do nothing with that information.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they assume it's just the cops with the whatever bad cops or whatever. And no, it's not Elaine. It's the traitor.
Yep.
And then The Rock is like, oh, what? And the person
I knew for one day.
Yeah, the one person that none of us know that somehow there's a traitor in our organization.
The minute you showed up, we started having problems.
Yeah, the minute you showed up, we've had problems. We don't know you. I'm pretty sure you've accidentally broken into a British accent a couple times. Maybe, possibly, you've broken character a few times. But yeah, but apparently that's a hush-hush secret because Letty doesn't know.
Yeah.
So that's very under wraps, and it proves even more to the point.
But at the same time, though, apparently Letty also didn't know that a guy who sells weapons of mass destruction on the market is also a bad guy.
So how much was Letty privy to? This brings up, because if she didn't know that the one woman was part of the crew, then she probably doesn't know much. But anyway, or maybe she's part of the crew. The other people seem to know she was part of the crew. Doesn't matter. Nada Elena is a traitor.
Yep.
All right, and then, which leads us to, they leave, and Taj immediately says, well, they can't call if I block all their devices.
Yeah.
So he did,
And they're in the act of calling.
They're in the act of calling, yeah. And he's like, we don't need it, which doesn't make sense because we're about to tell you why. He's like, we don't need her anymore anyway. And Nada Elena smiles, and she's on the plane. Yeah. They have her there with her. She's not.
This is what I never understand. It's like, you can kill someone just as easily from the secret base. Yeah. Than the plane you're currently landing in the midst of everyone who's trying to kill you.
Yeah, she's on the plane. Unless they were maybe bringing her there in case they really needed to use her for leverage. Who knows? But they block the things. They can't get the call through. Mm-hmm. And they're like, all right, we're good to go. Because they assume, like anybody did, like I did when I was watching the movie, that they must have Mia somewhere in the States or something.
Yeah, some safe location.
That they have her, and then they're going to have to go get leverage. Her. Yeah. Yeah. And so we get to the big final action set sequence, which when I say it's like a 20-minute...
Oh, yeah, this is...
just chaos of everybody doing the multiple things.
Yeah, the Rock came everywhere. Told them that Shaw needs to tell you something. Yes. And said that we also have 30 minutes left to kill. Yeah,
we have 30 minutes left in the movie. Let's chase him in a plane. They're on a runway.
That goes forever. This is the longest
long runway.
I mean, if we were to... Okay, they were going top speed in their cars.
Long runway.
For, I'll be conservative, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
If they're going 60 miles an hour, which they were doing easily...
You could drive from your house to my house.
Yeah.
In the amount of time that they're on this runway. Yeah. If you just had a straight shot with no traffic signals and you're going 60 miles an hour.
You are commuting to work. Yeah. In the amount of time it took them to they didn't even leave the runway.
They never leave the runway.
There was still runway left.
There's still plenty of runway. This is a never-ending runway. And can I mention this before I get it? With all the stuff that happens that we're about to get into, those pilots are not thrown through a loop. They don't look out the window. These are the most professional. They're taking off on a commercial flight. They're just like, all right, and our altitude is 500 feet.
We'll have sunny weather.
Attention, everybody. Thank you for flying. So
they were just like, this is what we do.
So here's what we got going on. They open up the cargo dock. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. He drives up it. Yep. That's how he's going to escape. But the Fast and Furious crew is on his tail. Okay. Han and Giselle are in a car. I think maybe Roman and Taj are in a car, or they're in separate cars maybe.
I think
The Rock is in like an SUV. Vin Diesel's in a car.
Yeah.
Paul Walker's in a car. They're all chasing.
Yeah.
Some of them are together. Some of them are in their own cars. Somehow Vin Diesel and Paul Walker shoot up and get on the plane because the plane can't take off yet.
Sorry.
The plane can't take off yet. So they just get onto the plane.
Yeah.
Because they don't know that Mia's on the plane. No. We find out that Mia's on the plane.
They find out soon.
They find out very soon. You have Han and Giselle decide that if they can shoot a flap...
Wait, Letty gets on the plane too.
Letty's on the plane?
I thought, yeah. Because she's the one who takes out Natalena.
Oh, yeah, Letty's on the plane, too. So she gets on the plane.
Everyone's on the plane.
Maybe Vin Diesel and Letty are in the same car.
That makes sense.
Okay, so whatever. They're on. Those are the characters on the plane.
Yeah.
On the runway, in one form or another. I was about to say The Rock, but The Rock ends up on the plane too.
But The Rock gets on the plane, like by climbing up it.
Okay, so.
Wow.
All right. There's people on the plane and there's people on the runway.
He tells someone to take the wheel, and then he...
Yes, I forgot to make a note of that.
Jumps out, and he ends up landing on the wheel of the airplane.
Because this was huge for me. Instead of saying, take the wheel, he says, grab the wheel. And if you remember back to our very first podcast where we came up with the Leaf Take the Wheel segment, you said grab the wheel, and
Yeah, you trounced.
I trounced you and said, they don't say grab the wheel, they say take the wheel. And this one you said grab the wheel, so I owe you a huge apology.
Maybe what it is, though, is that Hobbs had not learned the proper Fast and Furious parlance, much like I...
Maybe he has. So that by the time 8 rolls around, he says, take the wheel. And then he's like proud of himself for a second.
He's like,
So I said it, guys. And so on the runway are Taj, Roman, Han, and Giselle. Mm-hmm. All with the point where they're going to shoot the plane with harpoon guns. And first I thought they're just shooting the flap because
that was the initial
can't take off with the flap.
That was initially what she said. If we shoot the flap, or someone said it.
That means a plane can't take off?
Then
I don't know anything about planes.
Well, if they shoot the flap, then they should like pull it down, and then it would give them too much drag or something.
All right. Well, I mean, this was the same movie that had a crushed aluminum car acting as an anchor for a tank. So we have just...
I mean, it's
fight sequences
all out
everywhere.
Everything. Cars are flying, bullets are flying, people are flying.
There's a fight sequence between... There's Letty and Natalena have their second fight. There's Vin Diesel fighting the Ivan Drago thug.
Yeah, this is where Ivan Drago has his, moment.
Yeah.
Because they start fighting. Actually, no, initially, isn't it?
It's Brian, I think, fighting Shaw. No, it's Vin Diesel fighting Shaw at first.
Brian fights Shaw a little bit.
Yeah, again, Brian fights Shaw. But then... Because they match off with their body types. Yeah. Because it would make sense for Brian to fight Shaw and Vin Diesel to fight...
Mia get off the plane somehow in that one car and then start giving chase.
Yeah.
And I don't remember why...
He backs out. They back out of the car. But that's after all the fight scenes. At some point, I don't know.
No, the fight was still going on.
There's a four-way fight between Shaw, Vin Diesel, The Rock, and the huge guy. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, because The Rock
Before the four-way fight, it is just Vin Diesel and Paul Walker.
Yeah.
And his main concern is he sees Mia. He wants to say Mia. Shaw's getting in the way. So Shaw is about to kill Brian. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, Ivan Drago guy is keeping Dom from getting to Brian, which was when you have Dom do this amazing thing where he jumps and headbutts the guy.
Headbutt thing. I thought that was the most spectacular moment.
It was great. There's good fight sequences in these movies.
Because I have no idea how you'd even get enough. He had
it's like a missile.
He launched himself.
He doesn't just jump over and headbutt him as he falls. He launches his body.
Like torpedo.
He torpedoes himself and headbutts him into Shaw.
Yeah.
Knocking Shaw out, allowing Brian and Mia to get in the car. He goes in reverses down the cargo ramp. Boom. They're back out on the runway. We're left with the four-way fight between Shaw, Vin, The Rock, and the huge guy.
The Rock and Dom size up against their equivalents.
Yes. And much like a knuckle-cracking moment in Furious 7 when they have the monkey wrenches and the pieces of the car.
Well, that's the thing.
There's a split second where they look at each other, look at each other's partner.
And then kind of
it's like a WWF wrestling, like they're sizing each other up, cracking their knuckles, and then it just goes into just an absurd
and get into the huge
fight that I don't remember too many beats of other than that was just a huge fight.
People were just, it was just...
At the same time, Letty is fighting Natalena. Mm-hmm. She gets Natalena in front of a door.
Yeah.
Which Natalena happily stands in front of for a long time. Happily stands there as The Rock shows up. Happily stands there in front of the open door as The Rock throws Letty a harpoon gun.
Yeah.
Happily stands there long enough for Letty to raise the harpoon gun.
Take aim.
Give a Rambo comment. Wrong team, whatever.
Yeah.
and shoot her in the chest with a harpoon gun, at which point and there's like a moment where she just like, not Elena, like after he throws Letty the harpoon gun, looks at Letty, looks over the Rock and like with a like, are you serious type look. The Rock has enough time to do like a shrug and a smile. She looks back at Letty and Letty shoots her.
Is this how we're doing this?
I was like, I guess this is okay, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to take you both on. So while all this is happening, tragedy strikes the team.
Oh, yes.
Would you like to speak of this terrible tragedy?
Meanwhile, the plane is now like taking off or trying to take off.
It's trying to take off.
All of the tars have successfully harpooned themselves to the wings of this plane.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool, because now the plan is, are they trying to maybe just hold it back from taking off?
Yeah. And you have Han. And this is what, actually, this confused me beyond belief.
Okay, yeah, this was a confusing sequence.
So, like, Han and Giselle are in their car.
Starting to lift the cars, and they're somehow attached to another car.
Yeah, they drugged another, bad guy car in there. Mm. And they're all kind of just spinning around in their cars, like, this is terrible, I can't believe this.
They're not far off the ground.
No.
This is what's confusing about it.
And halfway through this, spinning around, Giselle is like, I'm going to beat that guy up.
Yeah. Because he's coming across the tops of the cars to try to get into their car. And there's a sequence where I think when she's going to harpoon it, he's like, you know, hey, I got to do some foreshadowing here. Be careful out there. This is how we live.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're going to go out there and die now. And
but like
that was a beat back.
Oh yeah. But this is what I don't understand. So everyone is like locked into this weird death spiral in their cars.
But they're out of the cars at this point.
But they were in before they got out.
They were in, yeah. But you would get out.
If my car was being dangled by a giant plane, I would not get out of the car to fight a guy randomly.
That's true. But does he have a gun?
I don't know.
Is he going to shoot through the car? At that point, I would argue that you are low enough to the ground where just jump out of the car. But that brings us to about what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Which is, they're at this point fighting. Yeah, they're fighting the guy in the car.
out there.
And this is all hard to keep up with, people, because you're going back and forth between like 6 fight sequences.
Yeah. Giselle gets knocked. Well, she like fights the guy, and then I think she like we think she wins, but she's like flying off the car, so Han
he grabs her.
And he's like, okay, well, this is great. We're going to live forever and never die, blah, 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 blah.
He grabs her, and I guess
love you.
Bad guy is still crawling across the cars, or different bad guy?
Yeah, another bad guy, or some bad guy.
Bad guy is now crawling across the cars.
Probably the same bad guy.
And he's like, about to shoot.
I don't think he was even about to shoot Han. He just was like approaching
He's just approaching.
So she thinks that clearly the best move here is to let go. Yeah. And then shoot him in midair.
Why she's falling back like Alan Rickman at the end of Die Hard style. Yeah. She's falling back like, and Han is like, no. Boom, 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 boom. And she's shooting this guy, and you think, oh, she blasted this dude because he was about to kill Han. Yeah. No.
Yeah, because then Han turns around.
And the guy's there.
And the guy's still there.
He's like, well, I'm just kind of standing here, not trying to fall off this car, man. Can we just all stand here on this car together for a while? Han
gets infected with the rage virus.
He gets the rage. This woman is dead.
Pummels this dude.
As far as we know.
Just pummels this dude.
Pummels him and pulls in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. He just chucked into the engine.
He throws him into the engine.
Yeah.
He picks up the dude and throws him into the plane engine.
Which I think, doesn't that ultimately lead to the demise of the plane? I think
it might.
I think that starts...
We should say that Roman was the only one who was successfully able to shoot a harpoon into the flap.
Yes.
I just want to mention that.
Yeah, he was, because even he took the time to be like, ha, I did it.
I did it. Roman has to have his win. So, Giselle has fallen to what we find out is her death. Mm-hmm. All right.
And...
You're right. The plane starts to crash.
Yeah, so...
They somehow all get out of they're harpooned to it, but then now they're not harpooned to the plane anymore? Somehow they are able to pull their cars away.
I think because they were able to... The plane started to crash, they were able to...
Just drive off with pieces of the plane in tow, possibly? That's fine. What's happening on the plane while this is happening? Vin Diesel is still fighting.
Roman and Taj are down there in their car. Letty jumps.
Letty jumps? Oh, yeah, Letty jumps.
The Rock jumps.
So they both jump. Okay, we got to get back to that. I'm going to write the word jump here on my notes because it makes no sense. They all jump off the plane.
And land in the car.
Cars.
Roman and Taj.
Okay, all right. But
and then,
Vin Diesel is still engaged in a battle with Shaw.
I'm going to kill this guy or something.
Yeah, he's still fighting Shaw.
And...
even though the plane is crashing and you could just get off the plane and Shaw's not going anywhere. But he's had enough.
Yeah, so Shaw gets in his car, that Jeep or whatever, and he's going to apparently drive out of the plane.
Yes. And
then Vin Diesel gets in the next seat, and they proceed to, like, elbow each other for a while, like little kids taking a car trip.
Okay, so does he just throw Shaw out of the plane's about to crash? Yeah. They got to get out of there.
No, he doesn't throw. Shaw never gets out of the car.
It's very similar to the scene in 7 when those two guys are trying to get off the bus that's about to crash.
Yeah, and and Vin Diesel's like in and out of the car a few times, I think.
Yes.
But like at one point, then the car gets loose, and Vin Diesel has the goods by now, I think.
Yeah, I was too hurt to watch any of this after the death of Giselle, so this was all blurred to me.
You watched it through tears?
I watched it through blurred tears. So he's getting the thing. He's still trying to get the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, he needs the thing because the thing means freedom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we don't know that yet because I thought freedom was off the table because they went after Mia.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, regardless.
Yeah, you're right.
For some reason, Shaw managed to get the Jeep going. There's like a small wall now in front of the Jeep.
Yes.
Which the Jeep hits and then throws him out.
Okay.
And then
the plane crashes.
Chucks him out of the plane.
Oh yeah, he falls like out the ramp. Like, oh, he falls out the ramp. Okay. And then again, so another character who's falling. You see where I'm getting with all these characters falling out of this plane and not being hurt.
Yeah.
Save one who fell 10 feet off of a car and died. Yeah. In a movie franchise where people can fall out of buildings, fly across the air, crash down mountains, throw themselves out of planes. How does Giselle die from falling the 10 feet that the car is off the air? BS.
Well, and now this is... I'm pushing this along.
Okay, so, all right.
Because I can't figure out for the life of me then how Vin Diesel got off of the plane.
You forget this. You missed, my friend. And it must have been for your concern for Owen Shaw, because we all know how much you love traitorous villains. You were concerned that Owen Shaw fell off the back of the plane.
Where am I going to get my next babysitter?
Your whole vision of all these villains is skewed because you see them now as all lovable baby rescuers. So you're worried about Shaw and Deckard. You're like, oh no, not Shaw.
Well, if they don't survive, how will they rescue Vin Diesel's baby?
So,
the timeline.
As far as I remember, Vin Diesel just crashes that truck out of the plane. He just drives it forward and crashes out the front of the plane and escapes the explosion.
Yeah.
They don't know that because they just see it crashing. But you see Vin Diesel, and he crashed. No. They see Vin Diesel crash out of the front of the plane. And by the front of the plane, I mean like where the pilots would sit. He crashes out of the front of the plane. And then they're like, hey! And then he tips a bunch of times. And then the explosion of the plane overtakes him.
Yes.
And they're like, oh no. And we're having another like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade moment where they're sitting there and they're starting to cry.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh. And they go and they hug Letty. And Letty's upset. She's destroyed. And then all of a sudden, driving out because the car is totaled, we see a shadowy figure amongst the flames. Vin Diesel walking out of the flames like a phoenix. And she runs to him and she hugs him. She loves Vin Diesel now.
Oh, yeah.
And Mia and Brian hug each other. He's alive.
Yay.
And then poor Han.
Yeah, Han is just standing there.
He's sitting there like a kid waiting for his puppy to come home who's missing, looking just like with the saddest like, is Giselle gonna walk out of the flames? Because Han lives in this universe. So he should look like that.
Yeah.
We don't die. But Vin Diesel just fell out of a burning plane, and The Rock has fallen out of a 20-story building like 5 times. Like, my girlfriend fell off of a car that was 5 feet off the ground, 600 yards back from the explosion. Why is she dead? And then they realize, and then Mia's like, where's Giselle? Because Mia wouldn't have any way of, I guess she would just assume that Giselle was there. I don't know. She never saw Giselle the whole movie, but she's like, that's nitpicking. I apologize. She's like, where's Giselle? And then they go over and she gives Han a hug, and Brian gives Han a bro hug, and Han starts crying. And you're like, oh, that kind of...
Yeah, it got real all of a sudden.
And then it pans out, and Taj is like sitting in his car, and he's like giving a nod as like Letty and Vin Diesel are like hugging and kissing, and he's like, yeah. Which he does at the end of 8 too. He gets a lot of satisfaction out of those, living vicariously through those two people's relationship. Like, he really loves, like, if anything ever happened to them, it would be like a child whose parents got divorced. He would just be, that's all he knows of love, is seeing those two
Mommy,
people.
Daddy, don't fight.
Yeah, he's so happy to see him. And then The Rock comes out, and he's like, yeah. And this is the type of moment that was missing at the end of 8, because nobody was getting along.
Yeah.
So then we cut to, oh no, Giselle's dead. Oomps, 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 barbecue next scene. Sunny California, they're at a barbecue.
I do love, though, the next scene, it does, like, show Han, like, immediately in the background, drinking a beer, like, sitting there by himself.
Yeah, all blowed out. And before they do that, the Rock goes, here's your thing. This is worth $1 billion. And The Rock is like, all right, name your price. And then in a very kind of cool, like, that was pretty clever, the screenwriter, Vin Diesel goes, like, $13.72. And he's like, what? And it's the address of his house. That's when we get to the scene where you see a probably morbidly depressed Han leaning up against the railing drinking booze.
We don't see the scene where Hobbs, like, sends a dark team in there to kill the current owners of 13.
Yeah, we also don't see, like, any repercussions again from, like, I guess, because when you get your man in the end, everything goes out the window. It doesn't matter that you held the gun to the, went rogue and held the gun to the British Army's head. And,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. These things don't matter. So to kind of wrap up the plot so we can get to our other stuff, they're there. They're all kind of talking about what they're going to do. Once again, like, I guess I'm going to go to Tokyo. And they're talking about, like, they're having the cookout. And, Vin Diesel shows up to the house. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about, they kind of have a little callback to Cars, because you're going to build a car in this garage, Jack.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's going to be, and he's like, it better be a Charger. And they turn around, Dom! And he's there with Letty. And then, they're sitting there and they're talking about, like, man, what an adventure. They're having their beats, their character moments. The Rock shows up. This part's important. The Rock shows up. He goes, I got you guys all those pardons. And then this is what I wanted to get to that I referenced at the very beginning. Okay. Elena shows up, and she's with The Rock. And she is so understanding of the fact that she spent 2 years with this guy or whatever. We find out that at this point, she probably has a child with this man.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, your old girlfriend's back. I get it.
Yeah.
And then, to add insult to injury, Letty comes up, and she's like, thanks for keeping an eye out of while I was gone. And like, you mean that relationship we were in where we had a kid and we're living together? And yeah, no problem.
And, okay, at what point... So I want to bring this up, too, because it makes it even weirder. I believe after the emotional plane wreck scene...
Yes.
But before that, doesn't Vin Diesel ask her at some point if she remembers anything? And she says no. That's
at the barbecue. Okay. He's like, does any of this look familiar? And she does any of this feel familiar? And she goes, no, but it feels like home. And that's the last beat in the movie. But then he comes up to Elena, because I got one more point to say on this. And she's like, well, I'm leaving now with The Rock. And he's like, now, come on. You know you don't have to go. Why would she stay? Yeah. You can sit here and eat barbecue with me and my woman and all my friends. And, we just this is a terrible breakup for you, and what no one knows is that you have my kid at home.
You know,
but you want to just have, you want a burger?
I hear Han's lonely.
Yeah, usually Han needs a girlfriend now. We want to keep you in the franchise.
Remember, I mean, this is when Letty died. That's what you know.
He dies in the next one, and what do we do with this character? They have nothing to do with this character now, which is why in the 7th one she's thrown out of a building, and in the 8th one they find out he just shoot her in the head. As terrible as that is, because if she's not Vin Diesel's side piece. Not to be rude. Well, no, because it was his... Not, that's wrong to say. It wasn't his side woman.
Yeah, no.
It was his woman. They were together.
Yeah.
So there would be no reason for her to want to stay and just be like, oh, I'm just part of the family now with you and your turn-out wife.
Yeah. So basically, what this means is the past 2 years or however long meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like dropped.
Yeah.
Like Letty's back.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's
you get it, right? Letty's back, you know?
I mean, I did love her more than you.
So then Hobbs and Vin Diesel have a pretty decent, cool, tough guy exchange, like they're known to do in these movies, where I didn't think I could trust a cop. I never thought I would trust a crook. And they're doing this weird thing where they're like sitting like at profile to each other, and you're seeing them talk like over each other's shoulders almost, like they're whispering each other's ears, but they're too tough to whisper to another man. So
they can't make eye contact.
Yeah, they can't make eye contact, and they're too tough to whisper into another man's ear. So they're having a conversation the way we are, like right next to each other talking. And they leave, and they sit down to eat, and they, Roman eats a chicken wing first or whatever, or a French fry, and they say, oh, house rules, you have to say grace. No one really seems that tore up about the death of Giselle.
No.
Like, at all. It's just like
it's just
barbecue time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Han. Here, come over here and eat some barbecue. They sit around, and like all these movies end, it ends with them around a barbecue table, and that's it. That's it. That's the end of the movie. He says, thank God for friends, thank God for family, thank God for fast cars. Pans out, done. For a second. Little bit of credit show. Did you watch this?
No.
You turned it off right away?
I did.
Oh. Mid-credit sequence. You are not accustomed to the concept of an end credit or mid-credit sequence.
Clearly not.
Most movies nowadays, especially franchises, have a scene either in the middle of the credits or at the very end that you stay for that's a little Easter egg or sets up the next movie. It's Han getting murdered by Deckard Shaw. If you have it for like another 40 hours, like you said, you have to go home and watch it. It's him, and they're showing the street race from Fast and Furious, and you see some mysterious shadow figure listening to the race on the police scanner, and like, oh, they're about to go down this street, and this car's being led by such and such car, or whatever, da-da-da. And he's racing towards them, and he crashes into Han in the middle of the intersection and flips him. And then it cuts to that scene from 7 when he's walking out, and he's like, he shows him throw the necklace down, as the sign, like we learned from Furious 7. And then it shows his side of the scene where he's calling Han and says, Dominic Toretto, you don't know me, but you're about to. Cuts to black. And people are probably like, oh! Yeah, because at that point, nobody knew Jason Statham was going to be in this franchise.
Yeah.
And so, like, usually when they announce an actor, like, this is going to be in the 7th one, you hear about it in casting. They cast Jason Statham for this little part in secret. So just imagine you're a huge fan of these type of movies, and you're sitting there and you're watching the credits, and all of a sudden Jason Statham shows up. People lost their minds.
Soiled themselves.
Yes. So we are going to, as we usually have been trying to do as we get to this point in the podcast, and you've been hearing us ramble on for 2 hours about this movie, we do have to do what we do, though, so we're going to go through these pretty quick. Leif, what would you say your jumping the sub moment is? And this is challenging for you every time to pick this, and this is why I make you do it, because I like to see. Usually you pick a character moment over an action beat.
Yeah.
But what is your jumping the sub moment? Superman Vin turning himself into a tactile missile to headbutt a larger man down.
I want to say the headbutt, because the headbutt was just insane. But no, to get back to it, it has to be the weird, like, I'm going to bicker about a vending machine in the secret base.
Right. I love that it's always a character beat.
Because it is. It goes back to our discussion. Like, the fact that we can have a discussion on the fact that, like, who is supplying the vending machine stuff.
All right. I'm gonna give you that one. I'm gonna give you that one. Usually I come back with a more, like, Hey, but what about when they drove off the cliff? But no, I'm gonna let you have that. That was
vending machine.
That was absolutely
vending
ridiculous.
Machine.
My favorite line, which I do every episode when I say what my favorite line is, obviously, I do love the part where he is saying that when we walk out that door, when we let him walk out that door, words like amnesty and pardon walk out with them, and then just says, those words walked out the day we were born. Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto is a master of saying lines that sound really good, that when people would be like, damn, that was a good comeback. But then when you think about it for 5 minutes, go
at all.
Oh, that doesn't hold up. So that was my favorite line. Fact of the Furious, real quick. I'm not going to go in detail. The scene with Vin Diesel crashing through the nose of a cargo plane was something that Justin Lin, the director, came up with all the way back in 2009 when producing the fourth one. He couldn't work it into the plot for budgetary reasons. He wanted to do it in the fifth one. He couldn't work it into the plot, again, because the technology wasn't there and it didn't really organically fit into the story. So he was finally able to get this plane, harpoon, cars crashing out of the plane sequence into the seventh one. So pretty good. The sixth one, you're right. I apologize. You got me. How many wheels? Let's recap real quick. What did you give the eighth one? You gave that one 3.5 wheels?
It's like 3. Yeah, 3 or 3.5.
We did 3 or 3.5. The seventh one, do you remember what you gave the seventh one?
3. 3.5. I think that's one 3.5.
You gave the seventh one 3.5. Yeah. You gave the first one 3 because you didn't want to come out of the gate too strong. And I believe we've agreed with each other on both of these. What did we give 2.5? Triple X.
Yeah, Triple X.
Triple X got 2.5. So that's history. How many wheels would you give the sixth one?
It was good, but because everything was like one big, because of how many times we forgot,
it's forgettable.
I mean, it's 2.5, 3.
I would say a light 2.5 to maybe just pushing into 3 wheels.
Yeah.
This one felt forgettable. It was still fun, but the plot didn't really hold together.
No.
Enough to thread it together where you're watching a movie. It was a bunch of action set pieces, but it wasn't action set pieces in the way the seventh one were.
They weren't distinct.
And I have a feeling like when we go back and watch the eighth one, it's going to be more in line with the sixth one than the seventh one, and what I'm hoping you find that the fifth one will be. Mm-hmm. I would put this sixth one right on line with the eighth. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, but you gave the eighth one 3 and you gave this 2.5. How can it be? Just the feeling I got from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. Yeah,
there was absurdity, but it wasn't. It was a little bit like Triple X was, where it was absurd, but it was just good action movie absurd. It wasn't like, this is hilarious, fun, absurd. It was fun to watch.
And that's exactly it. It was like the tank scene where it's like, oh man, he's going crazy with a tank. Oh, and he's crushing screaming.
He's crushing screaming people. And that doesn't bother me. But it just seems like this was more of a straightforward. This just felt like a straightforward action movie.
Yeah.
This could have been anybody. It's just heists, not heists, but chases, But whatever. We could go on forever about that. It was just a little bit more of a cookie-cutter action movie for me, but extremely well done.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good movie. It was you weren't wild. You're like, this is garbage. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Oh, yeah.
So we both give that a 2.5 to a possible 3 wheels. Next week's show, undecided. Probably something to do with The Rock.
Yeah.
Possibly Baywatch, but probably not Baywatch until it comes out on video. It's a holiday. You have some family obligations probably next week.
So we'll see what happens.
So we'll see what happens. We're going to
keep it open.
There will be an episode next week. We'll probably record it on Tuesday instead of Monday, but it will be up on Wednesday as it always is. But more than likely something with The Rock. And then coming down the line, we're discussing some things to try to be topical with some movies that are coming out this summer. Point being, you're still going to hear us every week where you're hearing us now.
Yep.
And other places that you can contact us, Leif.
The usual, it's Fastback Podcast. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Yep. Email, fastbackpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, no, we're not getting a lot of traction on YouTube. No. Which I think is the tendency for new YouTube channels to be these days. Does seem like we're getting some more traction on streaming services like iTunes and things like that. So we're not getting any comments from YouTube on that side of things. So if you aren't listening on YouTube, but you want to get in touch with us, get us on our Twitter or send us an email, like he said, at fastbackpodcast@gmail.com. We would, we always say, love to hear from you. Or if you're just listening, thank you for just listening.
Yeah.
So it's been another great episode. Leif, thank you. Fast and the Furious 6. Guys, we'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you later, man.
Stay furious.